For some godforsaken reason, the front door of this guy's apartment turned into a portal to a dungeon, leaving Kim Hyun-bok trapped inside, unable to ever step foot outside. At first, Hyun-bok was pretty overwhelmed, but he managed to calm down and took a walk around the dungeon. He even thought he'd become some kind of badass protagonist like in those fantasy novels. But reality hit him like a truck the first time he encountered actual goblins. He got beaten up and chased until he literally peed his pants. The goblin poison seeped into his wounds and he almost kicked the bucket right then and there, but thankfully he managed to scramble back to his apartment using all his survival instincts and the bandages and meds he had at home to pull through. But the weirdness didn't stop there. Once his body stabilized, he started seeing holographic windows just like in a VR game, and the system notified him that he'd met the requirements to become a dungeon explorer, but Hyun-bok wasn't happy about it at all. After his dreams of being an overpowered main character were shattered, and he'd experienced life-or-death terror firsthand, he'd turned into a total shut-in. He locked himself inside, though in reality he couldn't leave even if he wanted to. Since his front door was connected to the dungeon, what else could he do? He even posted on online forums begging for help, but of course no one believed him. He also tried reaching out to the police, or the fire department, but that didn't work either. However, one comfort was that on the dungeon web, there were others in the same situation as him, so on the site there started appearing some pretty wild information ranging from dungeon raid guides and market tips for newbies to even specific quests, with various rewards. After some research, Hyun-bok discovered that Dungeon 0795 was the one connected to his home. He knew he had to clear the place with the other people connected to it. But because Hyun-bok was a grade A coward, he kept thinking that out of the 30 people linked, at least one of them would clear the dungeon for him. But in the end, Hyun-bok had to step up and go hunting because he needed to put food on the table. To survive day by day, Hyun-bok would receive money if he took down monsters, and with that cash he could buy essentials from the dungeon web marketplace. The first few days were okay, but then Hyun-bok read a post saying the deeper you go, the stronger the monsters get, so he continued living like a coward and chose to survive by just picking off the weak goblins at the edge of the dungeon. Hyun-bok lived like that for 3 months until his blood ran cold when he discovered that out of the 30 people linked to the dungeon, only 5 were left alive. This immediately threw Hyun-bok into a panic. He was terrified that he'd die too, and if all the other explorers kicked the bucket, then he'd be stuck hunting goblins for the rest of his life. But what if one day the monsters from the dungeon crawled through his front door? Hyun-bok didn't know what to do, and the panic sure drove him to obsessively search for info on the dungeon web, and finally he saw a post that seemed useful from someone who also got the same quest as him. That person wanted to challenge the boss the next day by gathering the only 5 survivors left to form a party. Seeing this post, Hyun-bok found a glimmer of hope. Even though he didn't know how strong the others were, at least it was better than surviving alone. But then a few more days passed, and Hyun-bok panicked even more when he discovered he was the only survivor left in this Dungeon 0795. With 274 days left until the survival deadline, he had no choice but to struggle through his plan of beating up goblins. Just to survive. He was getting more experienced and smoother at handling these low-level monsters, but he knew he couldn't keep this up forever. Yet Hyun-bok couldn't find the courage to go any deeper. He tried sleeping to forget reality, but he couldn't. Hyun-bok even tried posting desperate pleas for help, but he ended up getting roasted by the internet for being a coward, even though he was furious. The truth was that Hyun-bok was a coward. In the end, he had to face reality. He had no other choice if he didn't want to be stuck in this dungeon forever. So he decided to meticulously plan his conquest. First, he started by identifying what his skills were. The dungeon web returned results quickly. Hyun-bok seemed to be a magic user class thanks to his ability to control and use mana. Plus, the site mentioned that his luck stat was an A, though he wasn't sure how that worked. But maybe luck was a type of power too. Finally, by learning how to use mana and control skills, Hyun-bok was able to tame the goblins and turn them into his minions. To test it out, he tried taming one goblin and then succeeded with another one. Hyun-bok thought his life had turned a new page. But then another problem hit. He ran out of mana and couldn't use his skills anymore. The moment his mana was drained, Hyun-bok's limbs trembled so much he couldn't move. Footsteps were coming from deep in the cave, and he was so desperate he had to order the 2 goblins he'd just tamed, say, to carry him back into his apartment. If he wanted to live, Hyunbok had to recover quickly. But ironically, he discovered something on the dungeon web, too late magic, and the abilities linked. Now to it are extremely rare, and the key to clearing a dungeon successfully is teamwork. But now he was the only one left alive in the dungeon. He couldn't team up with anyone else, even if he wanted to. Hyunbok deeply regretted being too cowardly to join the party earlier. He kept beating himself up, thinking that if he had joined back then, he might have cleared this dungeon successfully. Bitter tears fell. Hyunbok was full of regret and pain, but he couldn't change the fact that he was the only one still alive. Dungeon 0795 was just a rank F dungeon, yet Hyunbok had struggled for so long and was still stuck at the edge with only 272 days left until the mission failed. He still hadn't found any breakthrough, and then while he was broken and in utter despair, and sleeping in the hallway, suddenly the doorbell rang. Hyunbok jumped reflexively, grabbing the wooden club nearby to defend himself. Did he hear that wrong? Ever since the front door? Connected to the dungeon, the doorbell hadn't rung once. When the doorbell rang again, Hyunbok couldn't think. He just opened the door and rushed out with his weapon. But there were no scary monsters outside the dungeon, hadn't vanished, and right at his doorstep there was just an express delivery package. Hyunbok could probably never have dreamed that this package. It's from the president of South Korea. He's explaining his actions, saying he's investing in the future even though he knows most of these dungeon explorers won't even make it past a year. But he believes they all have potential, and he thinks that potential alone is worth the investment. His secretary is incredibly anxious. Sir, please. You've only spent $3,000 today, but Mr. President, you've already spent a total of $900,000 on this. Do you have any idea how many people? You've bought items for $900,000 is no small amount. The secretary keeps grumbling. Truth be told, the president knows the $900,000 isn't a small sum, but aren't people worth more than anything else in the world when it comes to support? The president just feels that if he helps them in their most desperate time, they will be forever grateful. And even if only 1% of those explorers actually end up succeeding, it's still a worthy investment. I understand your point, sir, but I don't think I could do what you do. In this regard, it just feels like wasting money. As long as you understand, that's enough, but since you're a government official, you really should watch your words. Back to Kim Hyunbok, the package he received contains a mage's gift along with a small note. The sender says they read his post on the general dungeon web bulletin board, and it seemed like he was in a tough spot, so this person had sent him 2 books they bought with their own money, hoping it might save him. The note is signed the Mage President. But how could Kim Hyunbok think that he is really the president of the country? Kim Hyunbok skeptically opens the package. Inside, there are indeed 2 books each worth $2,000. At first he thought this was a scam since he'd read plenty of threads about people getting ripped off over these books. But when Kim Hyunbok tears off the book label, it releases tiny glowing sparks. That's the mark of a genuine item versus a fake, proving Kim Hyunbok received the real deal. He keeps murmuring to himself, and the emotion makes his eyes turn red. I don't know who you are, Mage President, but I promise to keep your kindness deep in my heart. That day, when his 2 goblin minions fell fast asleep, Kim Hyunbok stayed focused on studying the book. He learned how to control mana properly instead of relying on instinct. It's a lot like rocking a cradle, balancing the flow and visualizing it in his mind. It sounds easy, but it takes Kim Hyunbok 30 minutes just to manifest his first magic circle. Still, this is much faster than 4 days ago. Kim Hyunbok feels hope being rekindled. If he practices hard, his progress will surely speed up even more. Besides, today, Kim Hyunbok has to go into the dungeon because the system set a penalty. If he doesn't enter the dungeon regularly, his level and stats will drop. So Kim Hyunbok takes this opportunity to bring his 2 goblin minions along to test his new magic. Before long, he manages to subdue another goblin as a subordinate. But unlike in previous times, perhaps because he used mana correctly, this time his mana pool is still quite full. Kim Hyunbok is thinking of capturing one more when he sees a group of skeletons. These are far more formidable than goblins, but if he could tame them like the goblins, they would be extremely useful. But the problem is, a skeleton is just a walking pile of bones. To tame monsters, Kim Hyun-bak needs both his blood and theirs. Skeletons don't have blood, but if he just, destroys them, it's such a waste. Kim Hyun-bak starts checking the skeleton's stats. Not only do they have higher stats than the goblins, but they also have skills. Seeing this, he becomes even more determined to tame them. With the support of his goblin pack, it isn't long before Kim Hyun-bak has 3 skeletons tied up in front of him. However, even after restraining them, he still hasn't figured out how to tame them. Nothing in Kim Hyun-bak's mind seems useful. With no other choice, he decides to cast the magic circle onto the skeletons. Even without blood to drip on it, Kim Hyun-bak tries to feel it out just like he did when he tamed the goblins. He slowly transfers a portion of his mana through the magic circle into the skeleton. The skeleton struggles constantly, but after a while it stops and acts as obedient as a puppy. Kim Hyun-bak can't believe his eyes, but it seems he actually succeeded even without monster blood, so trusting his intuition was a correct decision. Thinking this, Kim Hyun-bak is excited out of his mind. He feels his path as an explorer is finally looking promising. It's just that the skeleton alone already drained a significant amount of his mana. With no other options, Kim Hyun-bak has to head back for now. Only once he's back home does he have time to examine his newly acquired loot carefully. Turns out this skeleton used to be a girl. Since she was a girl, he can't just call her this thing or that thing anymore. Kim Hyun-bak decides to give her a name, Christina. That night, with another minion, Kim Hyun-bak sleeps soundly. But Christina can't sleep because after being tamed, her consciousness seems to have been restored. Christina starts remembering things from when she was human. Back then, she was also an explorer in the dungeon, but she and her party were ambushed by a dark force. She ended up dying there, eventually decaying into a skeleton and becoming the skeleton monster she is now. The next morning, Kim Hyun-bak wakes up to the noise of the goblins. Seeing Christina huddled on the floor, he realizes that last night he had picked up another burden. As soon as Christina sees Kim Hyun-bak get out of bed, she can't stop shaking her skull, which looks like it's about to fall off her neck. Kim Hyun-bak, seeing her like that, looks quite worried. "Christina, are you okay?" he asks, but he never expected that the dried-up skeleton would open its mouth and speak. "Good morning, master." Kim Hyun-bak is scared out of his wits. Seeing his face turn pale, Christina quickly explains that she is using mana to create a voice, and because her mana is low, she can't keep it up for long. Only then can Kim Hyun-bak breathe a sigh of relief. He almost had a heart attack right there. It seems he really did tame a high-level skeleton. Christina keeps thanking Kim Hyun-bak because thanks to him, at giving her a name, she restored her consciousness and can remember fragments of her past life. Kim Hyun-bak never expected a monster like a skeleton to have a past life, so he asks her to explain it a bit more. "Christina, aren't you just a simple skeleton? You can use mana to talk and even have emotions. What the hell is going on?" "As I just told you all, everything depends on the name. You mean everything just depends on a single name?" Kim Hyun-bak repeated it mechanically, but this question was like flipping a switch inside Christina. She immediately jumped up and thumped her chest rhythmically. "Ever since I was reduced to nothing but a ribcage, how can you say it's just a name? A name is incredibly important for distinguishing an individual within a group you know." Seeing Christina so agitated, Kim Hyun-bak had to apologize profusely. Only then did Christina realize how rude she had just been by shouting at her master. "It's just that for those who have had their names stolen and turned into monsters, like me, this new name truly carries immense meaning. People who have had their names stripped away, you'll have to explain that more clearly." Kim Hyun-bak asked, still confused, and Christina began to explain that those who lose their ego and even their souls end up as creatures at the bottom of the dungeon. After dying, she existed as a being, like that until yesterday when Kim Hyun-bak subdued her and gave her a new name. Kim Hyun-bak nodded, feeling he understood at least a little bit. He then asked if Christina knew who had stolen her name, but she only shook her head because Christina's memories hadn't returned completely. However, in those chaotic fragments of memory, she remembered one thing. Very clearly, the one who stole her name was a terrifying entity, truly terrifying. As Christina recounted this, Kim Hyun-bak felt his own body trembling unconsciously. This was because her emotions were connected to him, since the two were master and servant. So perhaps in that dungeon, there really was something incredibly horrific. Seeing Christina shivering, Kim Hyun-bok also started to get tense. He worried that he wouldn't have the ability to fight back against something so fearsome. But if he didn't fight to the end, Kim Hyun-bok would fall into the same fate as Christina, becoming someone stripped of their name with no soul left. And of course he didn't want that to happen at all. This time it was Kim Hyun-bok's turn to tremble in fear, seeing his master in such distress. Christina stepped forward and used her skeletal hand to firmly grasp Kim Hyun-bok's hand to reassure him. She promised that she would use all the power she could muster to help him survive. Even though the three goblins behind them couldn't speak, they also enthusiastically chimed in. Only then could Kim Hyun-bok relax a little. Ever since the dungeon linked with his apartment, this was the first time he felt he wasn't alone. After calming down, Kim Hyun-bok wanted Christina to explain clearly about the memory she had just recalled, but Christina had only managed to say a few words when her throat went silent. She tried to gesture and wave her arms to express what she wanted to say, but Kim Hyun-bok stared at her without understanding. After a while, he realized that Christina had run out of mana, so she couldn't make a sound anymore. Well, that's that. He had to wait until her mana recovered, but in the meantime, what should they do? Kim Hyun-bok was just saying it casually, but to his surprise, Christina actually found herself a way to kill time surfing the web. It was truly the strangest sight he had ever witnessed in over 20 years of life. While the skeletal girl played with the computer, Kim Hyun-bok researched her stats once again. Christina's stats were all quite good, and she even had some abilities he had never seen before. Christina's magic skills had even reached C+ rank. Kim Hyun-bok started to envision a bright future where if he learned magic from Christina properly, he and she could stay at the back and fight from a distance. If so, surely Kim Hyun-bok would need to tame a few more skeletons to stand at the front. The plan was truly as beautiful as a dream. After finalizing the plan, Kim Hyun-bok immediately took the first step, begging and pleading for Christina to teach him magic. After all, in her past life, she was a female mage, and Christina had no reason to refuse. So the two started a one-on-one lesson. Christina's magical knowledge was far beyond what Kim Hyun-bok had imagined. She could help him understand the theories in books much more easily. The two exchanged everything they could. Christina also explained how to gather mana and set up arrays, as well as why Kim Hyun-bok still couldn't create a magic circle. In just one short week, Kim Hyun-bok had learned a great deal and improved many of his own shortcomings. He was also eager to enter the dungeon after successfully creating a magic circle himself. But in the end, Kim Hyun-bok still had to leave home earlier than expected due to the periodic mandatory dungeon entry penalty. Before he went into the dungeon, Christina also reminded Kim Hyun-bok to subdue as many goblins as possible. Kim Hyun-bok didn't even ask for the reason, just buried himself in subduing goblins until Christina said it was enough. She did this to test something about herself. Previously, Christina had gathered mana with Kim Hyun-bok before entering the dungeon, even though that array had no flaws and Kim Hyun-bok also collected a lot of mana. Christina's mana amount didn't change at all. Therefore, she thought she was facing some kind of problem that prevented her mana from increasing. When Kim Hyun-bok hadn't figured out how Christina intended to test this, with those goblins, she aggressively grabbed one by the neck and squeezed hard. The goblins screamed in pain, but Christina didn't stop her hand. This action of hers made Kim Hyun-bok goosebumps all over. After a while, suddenly, Christina let out a self-deprecating laugh. So it turns out I am an undead. Kim Hyun-bok didn't have much knowledge about this undead concept. Christina then explained to him that she was a monster that had already died, and because she was already dead, her desire to live again was stronger than anyone else's. The reason Christina couldn't absorb mana was that she was an entity without life, and the only path for an undead to become stronger was to continuously destroy and absorb the life force of other creatures. Because Christina and Kim Hyun-bok could partially share emotions, he could clearly feel at this moment that she was trembling. Skeletons were naturally monsters, but Christina had never considered herself a monster after being given a name. Yet ironically, now if she wanted to become stronger, she was forced to use the way of monsters. Even if sacrificing others to save oneself was natural, Kim Hyun-bok was sure that this skeletal girl hated that more than anyone else, Because Christina was feeling very miserable, Kim Hyun-bok came up with a reason to make it easier for her to accept this Christina you once said that you would do. Anything to ensure my survival, right? Yes, Christina answered weakly. Then this is an order, Christina, kill and grow stronger. What? Christina thought she heard him wrong, but Ben asked again. Kim Hyun-bok firmly repeated his words, ordering Christina to become stronger at all costs, even if it meant wiping out every other living creature. And so that Christina wouldn't feel any pain or guilt, Kim Hyun-bok also told her to place all the blame and cruelty upon him, because this was strictly his command. At Kim Hyun-bok's request, Christina remained silent for a long time, then suddenly spoke up, Master, you really are kind. Kim Hyun-bok looked a bit awkward being seen through by Christina. It's true he didn't want her to overthink it, but the reality was that Kim Hyun-bok didn't have many ways to survive, so he was just making excuses to keep going. After that, Christina was ordered to absorb the life force of all the goblins they had hunted. Done for today, she muttered once finished. Luckily, I'm not a zombie. Huh. What's the difference? Ever since knowing Christina, Kim Hyun-bok felt his knowledge was incredibly limited. He didn't know anything. This time was no different. Christina had to explain to him, unlike skeletons, zombies are still creatures with some life left so they can get stronger. Much faster, but they have to eat instead of absorbing life force. Which meant if Christina had been unlucky enough to turn into a zombie, she would have to feast on the flesh of other creatures. Picturing that dark scene, Kim Hyun-bok got goosebumps all over. He started nodding repeatedly. Right, I'm glad you're a skeleton. After this hunt, Christina's stats finally increased, but not significantly. After assessing the situation for a while, Kim Hyun-bok felt they couldn't just keep hunting goblins like this anymore. Instead, they needed to find a stronger type of monster. No sooner had he said that than the goblin underling Kim Hyun-bok had tamed suddenly became agitated repeatedly, Char pointing into the distance. He looked where it was pointing and discovered enemies attacking. The opponents were still goblins, but they came in a huge swarm, and every single one of them and seemed to be going berserk. Before Kim Hyun-bok could even react, Christina blocked his path. She said she could handle this alone. Kim Hyun-bok was extremely worried, but hearing Christina's firm tone, he obediently stepped back to observe. He watched as the skeletal girl performed a series of fluid, graceful movements, creating a complete magic circle before chanting the spell, Magic Arrow. Just this one attack from Christina wiped out half of that goblin pack, but at the same time it also depleted all her mana. Kim Hyun-bok obviously couldn't just sit there and watch, so he and the remaining goblin underlings took on the rest. Even though both sides were goblins, the same kind, they lunged at each other viciously. Kim Hyun-bok didn't stay idle either. With a shield in one hand and a weapon in the other, he fought incredibly hard. Those strange goblins couldn't hold their own after a while and turned to flee, but Kim Hyun-bok didn't intend to let them off that easily. He immediately ordered the goblins he had tamed to give chase. He thought Kim Hyun-bok would win completely, but he didn't expect to be played for a fool by these low IQ creatures. They didn't run away out of fear, but to purposefully lure Kim Hyun-bok into a trap. When he and his goblin underlings caught up, they fell right into the enemy's true lair, where they had been lying in ambush. As a result, all the goblins Kim Hyun-bok had tamed were wiped out, and he stood there completely bewildered, not knowing what to do next. Just taming this squad of goblins had taken so much time. Kim Hyun-bok didn't know how long it would take to start over. Master, please don't be sad. Christina's voice suddenly rang out from behind. After all, they were just goblins. Sooner or later, we would have had to get rid of them anyway. You should just see it as something unavoidable. Christina tried her best to comfort Kim Hyun-bok, urging him to return, to heal his wounds instead of standing there feeling regret forever. After calming down, Kim Hyun-bok felt that Christina's words made sense. If he panicked over every little setback, how would he ever accomplish anything great? And so the two returned home. Christina helped Kim Hyun-bok disinfect the wounds on his body. After that, she used magic to help him heal those wounds. What are you doing? Kim Hyun-bok asked in surprise. Master, don't worry, it's called Flash Heal. It's the best spell for treating minor wounds. Because I became an undead, I thought I wouldn't be able to use it anymore, but thank goodness it still works. So lucky. Kim Hyun-bok inspected himself for a while. Indeed, the wounds had healed. Christina also took this opportunity to advise him to buy some protective gear. After all, they would encounter even stronger enemies later. Going into battle empty-handed like that wasn't safe at all. Kim Hyun-bok felt that what Christina said made a lot of sense. However, his wallet really didn't allow for carefree shopping. It wasn't that he had no money, but Kim Hyun-bok wasn't exactly flush with cash either, while the cheapest set of armor. A cost up to $1,500. If you want to conquer dungeons, that cheap armor won't be effective, Christina insisted, waving her hand. But don't worry about the money. I have a way. Ever since Christina arrived, Kim Hyun-bok's life had blossomed because whenever there was a tough job, she took care of it. Christina decided to write a topic sharing some useful dungeon tips to post on the forum, and if that post attracted enough views, Kim Hyun-bok would receive royalties. The only problem was that even Christina didn't know yet what she would write about. I'm considering a post summarizing some useful spells. That seems like it would be a hit. Is that really going to work? Kim Hyun-bok asked hesitantly. Didn't you say that magical knowledge is worth its weight in gold? Christina had already considered this, so she only intended to summarize a few unimportant low-level spells. But Kim Hyun-bok was still reluctant because whether it's high-level or low-level, it's still very valuable since it comes from a real mage. Instead of selling knowledge like that, he still wanted to find another way to make money. In the end, Christina was determined to earn money by writing posts, and what surprised Kim Hyun-bok was that those posts not only helped him earn money, but a lot of money because not long after being posted, it had already attracted over 50,000 views. With this much money, we could even move an entire fortress. Move it. Kim Hyun-bok continued to stare in disbelief. Yes, I read that after paying the relocation fee, you just need to enter your current address and the place you want to move to. Just show up, and then you only need to go conquer a dungeon for half a day. By the time you return, the moving process will be finished. At the same time, Christina also said that the money corresponding to the post views would soon be transferred to Kim Hyun-bok's account if he earned first place on the forum, which would normally take about 5 months for the author to receive, but Christina said she had connections with the admin and had negotiated for Kim Hyun-bok to get paid sooner. Overall, they could move to a better house. After digesting this information, Kim Hyun-bok gave Christina full authority and asked her to move to a place with as many people as possible because he was sick to death of being lonely, as if he were the only one left in the world. 4 days later, upon returning from the dungeon, Kim Hyun-bok entered the new house. It was a 4-room apartment with a separate living room and kitchen. Christina had helped him sign the lease for a full year. The house was much more comfortable than the old one. Not to mention that after stepping onto the balcony, Kim Hyun-bok could see an entire bustling, vibrant neighborhood. Thinking it over, Kim Hyun-bok still felt this move was too surreal. He didn't know how Christina could pull that off and whether the admin she mentioned earlier possessed some sort of supernatural power, and if they could help him escape this place or not. Master! Christina's voice suddenly rang out from the corner of the room, making Kim Hyun-bok jump out of his skin. Control yourself, Master. There's no other way to survive except by conquering the dungeons. Haven't you already accepted that truth? Kim Hyun-bok glared at Christina. She was reading his mind. Setting aside how she did that, her harsh reaction now made his skin crawl. Still, there must be some way for me to get out of here, right? Even if you were lucky enough to escape. Then what if the consequences are even worse than this? Would you just keep running away? It's time to stop thinking that running away will fix the situation. Although Kim Hyun-bok knew there was a coward being lectured straight to his face by a skeleton still made him feel uneasy. However, Christina's harsh words also awakened him. Kim Hyun-bok punched the invisible wall separating his home from the outside world so hard his hand bled. He could clearly see the outside world. Yet he was trapped in this invisible cage. Kim Hyun-bok had made up his mind. Freedom was right in front of him, and he had to escape this place. I will go in there. I will successfully conquer the dungeon and get out of here. Kim Hyun-bok said, his voice full of determination and fury, but at this moment, what Christina cared about wasn't his tone but the abundant mana suddenly surging from her master. Immediately after, Kim Hyun-bok also realized something strange. He stared at the energy flowing from his palms, but didn't know what it was. Christina was overjoyed because her master had overcome his despair and fury, finding his resolve once again. From that spiritual awakening, Kim Hyun-bok activated the flow of mana in his body, and this proved that Kim Hyun-bok had truly become a mage, even if he was still low level. Kim Hyun-bok was stunned and slightly skeptical. He didn't think that becoming a mage would be as simple as overcoming his own despair like that. But then he felt the magic orb stirring in his heart. Right at that moment. That was the circulation of the magic flow. Kim Hyun-bok had actually become a mage. Then Kim Hyun-bok began to enter the dungeon in his new capacity, as a level 1 mage. There was no denying he had become much stronger. Kim Hyun-bok began to fantasize that he actually had quite the talent for magic, but Christina was a real buzzkill. To be honest, I have to point out the fact that your equipment accounts for 90% of your power, Master. Christina was certainly very good at killing someone's vibe. Kim Hyun-bok was brought back to reality. He had just bought a leather armor set worth $10,000 and a thorn spear worth $5,000. It would be weird if he didn't get stronger. Today's hunt went relatively quickly because Kim Hyun-bok's targets were just 2 skeletons. One possessed D-rank swordsmanship and C-rank defense, while the other had C-rank sword, her skills and C-rank commanding abilities. After subduing these 2, Kim Hyun-bok brought them home and named them. He racked his brain to come up with the 2 names Castor and Kai. Just like Christina, the 2 of them reacted immediately once they had names, but they seemed a bit slower than Christina was before. After observing carefully, Christina advised Kim Hyun-bok to temporarily restrain these 2 new recruits, because there was no guarantee they would turn out to be normal like Christina. After all, the memory of the moment of death, as well as the time spent wandering, as the undead were terrible memories. She wasn't sure if these 2 peers of hers would retain their sanity after awakening those memories or not. Though half believing, Kim Hyun-bok ultimately listened to Christina. He tied the 2 skeletons up and locked them in the closet. After a while, Kim Hyun-bok heard some clattering in the closet, guessing the 2 new guys. He had recovered their memories. He threw the door wide open. Castor was the one who lunged out first, rolling and struggling incessantly on the floor. Christina guessed it had regained its memories. Furthermore, Castor seemed to understand what they were saying, but unlike Christina, it didn't know how to use mana to create sounds. Even so, Christina still tried to communicate with them, because she knew full well that both of them understood what she was saying. Congratulations, you 2 have just been given a chance to change your lives. As soon as they heard the words, change your lives, Castor immediately became obedient, and Kai's eyes also lit up, showing they were listening intently. Seeing their positive reaction, Christina started talking again. I'm sure you 2 know we used to be people who were stripped of our names, but we still have a chance to regain our memories from our past lives. All of that is thanks to the master here who gave us new names. Through Christina's lecture, that was several thousand words long, Kim Hyun-bok naturally became the savior of the skeletons, and Castor and Kai believed her every word. Taking advantage of the moment, they were soft-hearted. Christina continued to play psychological games by complaining and whining that Kim Hyun-bok was in a crisis, and this world was also going through the same things their world did when they were human. Therefore, to ensure they didn't lose their names once again, they had to give their all, to ensure the safety of their master. Castor and Kai found it more logical the more they heard and they themselves wanted to complete. To settle the unfinished business from their past lives, Christina and Ben urged the other 2 to swear loyalty to Kim Hyun-bok, and naturally she led by example. I swear by my very soul and the name my master has bestowed upon me. As long as you grant me this magical existence, I pledge my absolute loyalty to you. Christina's unwavering, serious expression was something Kim Hyun-bok wasn't used to, but he knew this was necessary to truly win over Castor and Kai. Christina demanded they do the same, drawing a magic circle to threaten them, warning that if Castor or Kai dared to refuse, they would be sent to an early grave once again. After a few seconds of hesitation, they finally relented, swearing loyalty to Kim Hyun-bok on the condition that he helped them take revenge and fulfill the wishes they hadn't completed in their past lives. In just a short time, Kim Hyun-bok had recruited 3 sentient skeletons as his subordinates. After the oaths were taken, the relationship between Castor, Kai, Christina, and Kim Hyun-bok grew much closer, allowing Castor and Kai to speak without needing to use mana. Once they were communicating, the first thing Kim Hyun-bok wanted to ask was their specific goals, since both had mentioned wanting help with revenge and their final wishes during their oath. Castor's memories had not fully returned, so he could only recall vague details about how he died in his past life. Castor was once a mercenary, but at the critical moment, he was betrayed. He could still vividly feel the pain of a sword piercing his chest, so he swore he would find the person who took his life and make them pay. Kai had a different goal. He was a knight from a prestigious family that held a legendary heirloom. However, when his older brother came of age and began exploring dungeons, the family lost contact with him and lost all news of the treasure as well. So Kai's mission was to find that treasure and bring it back. As for Christina, she was a mage in her past life and still is now. Her goal was simpler than her companions. She just wanted to reach a higher level of magic than she had ever achieved in her past life. After the three of them poured out their hearts, they all stared at Kim Hyun-bok in unison. He felt a bit embarrassed because compared to the grand ideals of these three skeletons, Kim Hyun-bok only wanted to survive and live in peace. It might seem simple to others, but for someone who had already lost his life once, he never wanted to experience that terror again. So he asked, "Please help me survive. Help me." Christina, Castor, and Kai looked at each other and then burst out laughing. "We really like your honesty." From then on, they formed an inseparable team. With these three additions, Kim Hyun-bok's dungeon farming became significantly easier. The goblins were no longer a match for him. In the following days, Castor and Kai began farming in the dungeon with Kim Hyun-bok, and they adapted quite quickly to this condition. Kim Hyun-bok couldn't stop smiling. Sure enough, with those two as the vanguard, he had more opportunities to practice magic from the rear. They were able to speed up their dungeon conquest tremendously. Kim Hyun-bok never imagined he would reach the boss's lair so quickly. According to the intel from previous explorers, inside this door was a goblin warrior along with 20 others. As soon as he heard that, Castor scoffed, calling them mere small fry, and was eager to rush in. Conversely, Kai was more cautious. After all, since being recruited by Kim Hyun-bok, they had only faced normal goblins. They didn't know the strength of the goblin warrior yet. Christina agreed with Kai, adding that the review Kim Hyun-bok had read was posted quite a long time ago and was no longer reliable. Christina advised him to prepare thoroughly before entering. In the end, Kim Hyun-bok listened to Christina and brought the other two back. Once they returned, Kim Hyun-bok checked Christina's stats on his phone. Compared to last time, her stats had skyrocketed. Then he checked Castor and Kai. Unlike Christina, these two were big, strong men, and their stats had also increased significantly. Naturally, Kim Hyun-bok had the most noticeable improvement. He had now reached his next level, and his dungeon progress was going well. But Kim Hyun-bok knew this still wasn't enough because one small mistake could mean the end for all of them. Thus, Kim Hyun-bok decided to prepare very carefully for the boss hunt. After thinking it over, Christina declared that to guarantee their success this time, they needed one thing: mana crystal dust. As soon as she said it, Kim Hyun-bok was shocked. He didn't know exactly how precious it was, but he knew it was expensive, specifically 10 grams. Already cost $1,000, and Christina wanted a whole kilogram. Even with the current 50% discount at the item shop, a kilogram of mana dust cost $50,000. With his current account balance, Kim Hyun-bok didn't have the ability to pay that amount. Even if he did, he didn't want to waste his savings like that. "I browsed the dungeon website and found out we can pay in installments," Christina said, continuing to persuade him. Even though she was technically a monster tamed by Kim Hyun-bok, he felt her words carried more weight than his own. In the end, Kim Hyun-bok had to agree to Christina's request and paid $50,000 in installments to buy her a kilogram of mana dust. After getting what she needed, Christina declared that from now on she would focus solely on staying in the fortress to craft items. If they wanted to go on a dungeon raid, the other three would have to go alone. The door to Christina's room slammed shut. Castor and Kai could only sigh. They didn't know what Christina was trying to craft, but it looked like that door wouldn't be opening for a long time. Even though Christina was busy, the other three could not afford to delay their leveling, but they weren't strong enough for the boss room yet, so they could only hang around outside. Now, instead of low-level goblins, their targets were skeletons, a bit deeper in. But even after farming nearly 300 of them, Castor and Kai still hadn't found anyone worth recruiting as their new comrade. They wondered if their luck had run out, or if they had used it all up in the previous rounds. Luck, huh? That really is the most important factor in life, isn't it? Kai asked suddenly. But for humans, no one can determine their own luck. It was just a casual comment, but because of this conversation, Kim Hyun-bok suddenly remembered something in his personal information panel. I have a talent called good fortune, or to be more precise, luck that only kicks in during desperate situations. Castro just felt that this talent was a bit absurd. But Kai remained silent for a few seconds before warning Kim Hyun-bok that he needs to be extremely careful in every situation. Why? Kim Hyun-bok asked, puzzled. Kai explained that luck must always be kept in balance on a scale, or at least that's what the rumors among mercenaries say. If luck brings good things into your life, it implies that it will also bring bad things. So if luck can save Kim Hyun-bok in desperate situations, it means that in other situations, it will turn into bad luck. Perhaps that is exactly why they haven't found any more skeleton talents until now. Still, I'm sure the master happened to run into us while his luck was being triggered right. Castro suddenly chirped, I feel so happy all of a sudden. Definitely, Kai chimed in, watching them so happy. And feeling delighted to be following him, Kim Hyun-bok suddenly felt a bit shy. But regardless, they still had to focus on the main issue. Today, they had hunted 287 skeletons with nothing to show for it, so Kim Hyun-bok felt it was time for all three to return home. When they got back, Christina was slumped asleep on the floor. It seemed like she had spent a lot of effort crafting what she wanted, and since she hadn't succeeded yet, her mood wasn't very good. According to her, usually crafting this item is extremely easy, but Christina couldn't understand why she had failed 3 out of 5 times today. That was the reason she was sprawled out on the floor waiting to cool off before starting over. Oh man, you're pretty unlucky too, huh? Kim Hyun-bok let out a dry laugh, thinking to himself if it was due to his own luck. Of course, he didn't dare say it out loud for fear of being plucked by Christina, but just because Kim Hyun-bok didn't say it, didn't mean Castro and Kai wouldn't. He had just finished buttering up Christina with a compliment when those two guys had quickly chimed in. Could it be because of the master's luck? What luck? Christina asked back. Then Kai started gesturing wildly, telling Christina about that strange talent of Kim Hyun-bok's. He thought that after hearing it, this bony girl would fly into a rage and blame everything on him, but unexpectedly, Christina was very rational and said, honestly, I don't know what you're talking about. Messing it up like this is all on me because I crafted it myself. But if the failure was partly due to the master's bad luck, then things aren't actually that bad. Kim Hyun-bok sighed in relief. He didn't know when he had started living by reading the expressions of a skeleton like Christina, but not getting yelled at was a blessing. Then they chatted for a bit before Christina stood up, getting ready to return to her room to continue crafting. Although the other three were very curious, she still didn't intend to reveal what she was crafting. After Christina went back in and slammed the door, Kim Hyun-bok looked at the other 2 skeletons. They quickly got on the same wavelength and crept to the door to eavesdrop. You guys must be really free, huh? Christina's voice came from inside, cold enough to chill their bones. Instead of lurking around where others are working, why don't you go back to the dungeon and keep conquering it? The door opened just enough for them to see her eyes, which were glowing as if she wanted to eat them alive. The 3 of them were shaking, nearly kneeling down to apologize. Yes, understood. We're sorry for bothering you. The door slammed shut again. Kim Hyun-bok cried internally, wondering why he had picked up such a sharp-tongued skeleton to be his subordinate. The boring days that followed just drifted by. Kim Hyun-bok, along with Kai and Castro, began to get impatient because Christina had locked herself in her room for too long. The last time they saw Christina was 3 days ago. Kim Hyun-bok wanted to help her with something, but Castro couldn't help but remind him about the death glare they had received a few days prior. If they went in to help now, they might get beaten up. I think Miss Christina will be happier if you trust her and keep waiting. Kai comforted Kim Hyun-bok. Right. Christina is a smart person. She'll be fine. Kim Hyun-bok took a sip of coffee, deciding to continue being a relaxed guy and stop worrying about Christina. Are you asking me that? But just as he finished his sentence, Christina's voice rang out, causing Kim Hyun-bok to snort his coffee. Christina, you're done. Seeing her expression wasn't great. Kim Hyun-bok thought he was about to get scolded again, but luckily she then showed a very happy expression even though she looked completely exhausted. In her hand, she held a card. That was the finished product after days of wrestling with the mana dust in her room. Christina explained that this is a magic card. Simply put, it is a card with an engraved formation. Once the user pours mana into the card, imagines it, and chants the spell, anyone can use magic. Additionally, it helps the user reduce magic casting time and allows them to use magic 2 levels above their own. Kim Hyun-bok took the card from Christina and examined it for a while. He truly had to exclaim in awe because the formation engraved on the card was incredibly sophisticated. Christina continued, "Actually, in my world, magic books are the standard because these magic cards are too small. Plus, magic cards are very hard to craft, so before I didn't usually use them that much." This is insane. Did you draw all these formations by hand? Yourself, that requires immense focus. Kim Hyun-bok couldn't take his eyes off the magic card. Mostly thanks to the accuracy of the technology in this world. That is... Christina laughed, because in reality she had used Photoshop to draw the sample formation, then freely adjusted the size and used a printer to make as many copies as she wanted. Although during production, there were a few faulty prints, overall everything went smoothly. It's also much better than sitting there copying by hand. "So what exactly did you fail at crafting last time?" Kim Hyun-bok asked. "Oh, that was the process to craft these spell cards," Christina explained, "because printing the formation is just a small step. What took the most effort was turning those regular as sheets of paper into magic cards using mana crystal dust." After locking herself away for a few days, Christina had successfully crafted 20 cards, including 14 cards of level. Kim Hyun-bok split the 6 rank 2 leaves in half for himself and Christina. She only created those low-level spell cards because of the mana cost. There's a clear difference between ranks. The higher the spell rank, the more mana it drains. And Kim Hyun-bok hasn't reached the level of mana mastery yet. Kaso and Kai listened to them talk, looking completely lost, until Kaso finally couldn't take it anymore. He slammed the table and asked, "Hey mage, you got nothing for us?" Unfortunately, she didn't. She barely had enough materials left to make those spell cards. "Instead," she said, "I'll craft some essential gear for you two." Kaso and Kai were easy to please, so they let it go. With the spell card issue settled, Kim Hyun-bok was eager to get Christina leveled up. They needed to hit the level cap to clear the first boss. After a few days, Christina's level was the lowest in the group. 16 days later, they all reached level 12 and marched to the boss gate feeling confident. Those spell cards were ready to be used. Kim Hyun-bok emphasized Kai's role, knowing he was a knight in his past life. After steeling himself, he stepped forward to push open the massive heavy door to the boss room. Inside was a vast ruined shrine. Right in the center sat a stone throne occupied by a warrior goblin, the boss of this dungeon. Surrounding it were ordinary goblins looking no different from the ones Kim Hyun-bok's group had encountered before, though there were far more of them than expected. Kaso and Kai took their usual spots on the front lines, acting as shields for Kim Hyun-bok and Christina. She quickly cast powerful fireballs from behind, attacking the enemy. Because the goblins were thick as ants, each fireball took out a bunch of them at once. Supported from the rear, Kaso and Kai grew more aggressive. Knight Kai, with his sword in hand, was like a meat grinder. Fighting fiercely, Kai's performance truly impressed Kim Hyun-bok. He realized that giving him the commander role was his best decision yet. Meanwhile, the mercenary Kaso was also tearing it up, charging forward and slashing through goblin after goblin. He was the first to reach the warrior goblin. Kaso's relentless hacking of the boss's guards sent the creature into a blind rage. After a moment, realizing his lackeys were useless, the warrior goblin stood up and roared to assert its dominance. Kaso, eager to solo the boss, charged in, but the warrior goblin's strength was on a whole other level. Unlike the small fries, it sent Kaso flying back. "Damn it! Would it kill me to have some armor?" Kaso grumbled. "Just try to survive. If we make it back, I'll buy you some," Kim Hyun-bok shouted. Empowered by that promise, Kaso charged back in with renewed energy. This time he had Kai backing him up. Kim Hyun-bok and Christina waited for the perfect moment. When the boss left an opening, they activated their spell card, unleashing a lightning strike right onto the enemy. Struck by the bolt, the warrior goblin's combat power plummeted. It tried to run, but Queso wouldn't let it. He grabbed the monster by the head and delivered the finishing blow. The goblin boss was down, and Kai took the chance to wipe out the remaining small fries. None of them let their guard down until the very last second. After a grueling battle, they had finally won. This was the first dungeon Kim Hyun-bok had successfully cleared. Even though it was only F rank, he knew he couldn't have done it alone. Thank goodness for Christina, Kai, and Kaso, or he wouldn't have cleared it in a lifetime. The three of them began absorbing the enemy's life force to level up. Just as they expected, that boss was on a completely different level. Christina even felt she could now craft high-level spell cards as easily as pie. Unlike them, Kim Hyun-bok didn't absorb life force from the corpses, so he wasn't as hyped. He just felt totally drained and collapsed on the floor, planning to rest a bit before heading back home. But as he rolled over, he saw the boss's corpse right next to him. He jumped, panicked, and scrambled 10 meters away. Besides the boss, the area was littered with goblin corpses in gruesome states. Kim Hyun-bok realized how crazy it was to try and sleep on a battlefield like this. Exhausted as he was anxious to get home. Before leaving, he checked his phone for anything new and spotted something called Fast Travel Service. Kim Hyun-bok had never seen it before, so it must have been a reward for clearing the dungeon boss. Since it didn't look dangerous, he tapped it. Instantly, a door appeared in front of them, just like Doraemon's Anywhere door. Kim Hyun-bok was stunned. So this is what fast travel meant. Having the door appear right there was incredibly convenient. They didn't have to hike all the way back to the dungeon entrance. While the group was amazed, Christina's reaction was over the top. She stood in front of the door, her whole body trembling. She kept muttering that this was ridiculous. How is this possible? Christina, are you okay? Kim Hyun-bok asked, worried. Leave her be, master, Kai said. They knew mages like Christina and could get obsessive about magic and anything related to it, especially someone as devoted to the craft as her. These two guys knew you shouldn't bother a mage in this state, especially a hot-headed one like Christina. Since that bone lady was busy studying the magic door, the three of them had no choice but to wait. Once Christina's curiosity finally cooled down, Kim Hyun-bok was finally able to step through and head home. The first dungeon conquest was complete. Kim Hyun-bok returned home completely wiped out. He collapsed on the floor the moment he walked in, but he couldn't rest for long. Before the doorbell rang. At first he thought Christina had bought something else online, but the skeleton lady instantly shook her head. Kai went to open the door, but there was no one there, just a huge package. Kim Hyun-bok saw the sender's name, the mage president. He was anxious. Opening the package, he found a gleaming set of armor along with a note. I was so happy to see that the one I helped wrote the top-rated post on the forum. Sharing tips and tricks like that, I'm also very impressed by the way you clear the dungeon slowly but surely. However, exploring a dungeon solo is extremely difficult and dangerous, so I sent this equipment to help you out a bit. The armor the president sent, as noted in the letter, was a suit made of interlocking chainmail rings. It was much lighter than solid plate iron armor, allowing the wearer to move with ease. Christina knew at a glance that it was incredibly expensive. In the letter, the president also specifically emphasized that he hopes to meet Kim Hyun-bok in person one day. This was meant as encouragement, hoping he could clear the dungeon soon. This was the second time Kim Hyun-bok had received help from the mage president. Even though he didn't know who the man was, he really wanted to repay this support, and judging by the price of that armor, he was definitely someone who wasn't short on cash. Christina suggested that Kim Hyun-bok gift the president a few magic cards in return. Given the nickname on the letter, he was likely a mage himself, so spell cards would be a meaningful gift. Besides, it's a great learning opportunity for you, master. As Christina said this for some reason, Kim Hyun-bok got a bad feeling. Sure enough, Christina continued, Now, master, you need to learn the first magic circle and spell arrays. Because you're a mage, too. Besides, the gift will be more meaningful if you craft it yourself and send it, so we should start right away, shouldn't we? Kim Hyun-bok couldn't accept being bossed around by an undead he had summoned, so this time he decided to fight back. I just got back from the dungeon. I need at least a day of rest. But the Objections from Kim Hyun-bok were completely ineffective, because according to Christina, studying and practicing also counted as resting for mages, so she dragged the exhausted Kim Hyun-bok to his room to prepare for special training that would last until he could create a new spell card on his own. Kai and Castor felt sorry for their master, but in the face of the harpy that was Christina, they had no right to speak up. Meanwhile, after sending the gift to Kim Hyun-bok, the president called for his secretary, named Mark. Seeing the president's joyful expression, Mark immediately guessed something good had happened. "Do you remember the young man from last time, the one who was the last member in your dungeon party? He's still alive and continuing to conquer the dungeon, so I sent him that armor." Mark was stunned for a few seconds. Why would you send something so expensive as a gift? The president was used to being nagged by his subordinates for spending too freely, but just like last time, he had no regrets. Afterward, the president opened the top-rated post on the dungeon web for Mark to see. This post was actually written by Christina, but outsiders like the president naturally assumed the author was Kim Hyun-bok. That was why the president felt he was the most promising of all the dungeon explorers, and thus the hopes he placed in him grew even greater. He couldn't stop sending supplies to support him. Meanwhile, Kim Hyun-bok didn't get to rest for a single second. After learning the first magic circle, he was dragged away by Christina to conquer the second floor of the dungeon. This time, all four of them were fully equipped. Kim Hyun-bok even had his new armor from the president, and he was accompanied by several goblin guards. Although the second floor of the dungeon didn't look much different. And from the first, according to Christina, the monsters here had higher levels. If you're reckless, you'll end up dead. Kim Hyun-bok hadn't been nervous at all, but hearing Christina say that made him start to panic, and just as they were talking about the devil appeared. Out of nowhere, nearly a dozen goblins jumped out in front of them. Among them, one was significantly larger. Looking closely, it was actually an ogre. Seeing how aggressive it looked, Kim Hyun-bok didn't dare to underestimate it. He deployed the formation they had discussed beforehand. His goblin guards, along with Kai and Castor, charged in to open a path. Originally before, moving to the second floor, Kim Hyun-bok had already upgraded his goblin minions, but the current situation didn't look too promising because they were being overwhelmed by the enemy. Even Castor, the fierce skeleton, was being pushed back by the ogre. Before they could finish off these monsters, another pack just like them appeared behind them. Kim Hyun-bok was so stressed that his hair was standing on end, but Christina reassured him to stay calm because this skeletal lady had everything calculated. "Castor, Kai, retreat when I give the signal," Christina shouted loudly, then pulled a magic card from inside her robe. Christina said she wanted to borrow a bit of Kim Hyun-bok's mana, but Kim Hyun-bok felt like it was draining his mana almost completely. After a while, Christina shouted for the other two undead to retreat. Castor and Kai immediately followed the order. When those two scattered, a massive fireball was formed by Christina. A fireball spell wasn't anything too special for Kim Hyun-bok anymore, but indeed this was the first time he had seen one this huge. The fireball Christina released instantly incinerated an entire area, and the goblins and that lead ogre could not escape. Kim Hyun-bok watched the scene intently, unable to look away. "So this is Tier 3 magic. Its power is much more terrifying than I thought." Kim Hyun-bok was about to turn back to celebrate with Christina when he discovered she had collapsed on the ground. He was startled and instinctively yelled out, "I'm still fine, Master Christina." Ethel spoke up to reassure him. "I'm just a little exhausted, but because I'm a skeleton, I just fell apart like this." "Interesting, my foot. You scared the life out of me." Kim Hyun-bok hadn't even relaxed for a second before Castor's scream made his heart skip a beat. "Hey, you mage, you almost took my life. Do you know that—" He had suddenly lost his legs. It turned out that because the firepower of the fireball earlier was so massive, Castor hadn't reached the safe zone before the fireball exploded. Poor him, he lost his legs and was now being carried by Kai. Looking at Castor in this state, it would be very dangerous to continue. Moreover, Christina was out of mana, so Kim Hyun-bok had to order his team to retreat. They returned home. Christina recovered very quickly, but then it was Kim Hyun-bok's turn to be drained of mana. As for Castor, Christina reassured everyone not to worry because a skeleton's bones can regenerate on their own. After a while, they would return to normal. or in an emergency. One could also take someone else's bones and attach them. Hearing Christina's calm tone, Castor got even angrier. Hey, aren't those my legs? You! How could you be so heartless? This is all your fault. Shouldn't you be apologizing to me? Apologized? Okay. I'll be more careful next time. Christina's attitude not only failed to soothe Castro, it actually made him even more annoyed. What kind of apology is that? Finally, Kim Hyun-bok had to step in to mediate, or else his eardrums would have been busted, because of the loud shouting. Luckily, they all returned safely, though it was a shame they lost all their goblin guards. Now that they were settled at home, Kim Hyun-bok finally had time to ask Christina about that giant fireball. How did you create such a massive fireball? Don't tell me you prepared it beforehand. Exactly. I prepared it in advance just in case something went wrong. Kim Hyun-bok nodded. It was a good thing the group had someone as far-sighted as Christina, otherwise they might have ended up 6 feet under today. The monsters on the second floor were much stronger than the regular goblins on the first, but to be fair, their strength still couldn't compare to the goblin warriors. Even the ogres, despite being larger and stronger, were nothing compared to the goblin warriors. As long as you were careful not to let them surround you, you could control the battle. So they sat down to discuss a new combat plan, and Castro also took this opportunity to pester Kim Hyun-bok into buying them new gear. This request wasn't actually unreasonable, because according to Kai, since they were skeletons, their body weight was very light. That was the reason why they couldn't resist the force of attacks and were easily blown away. But if they had armor, the increased body weight would help them hold their ground against enemies much better. Kim Hyun-bok kept listening and found it made sense. He was already planning to spend the money to invest in these two, but Christina stopped him once again. Because according to her, instead of using gear, they could create cores. Cores? What are those? No sooner had Kim Hyun-bok finished speaking than Christina's face darkened. I taught you this last time, didn't I? It seems someone is being lazy and not studying. I think I should be stricter with you, don't you? Seeing Christina's unpleasant expression, Kim Hyun-bok knew how miserable his near future was going to be. Now the cores Christina mentioned are common in undead. They act like hearts, no matter how strong an undead might be. Once their core is destroyed, they're toast immediately. Oh, so the core is a weakness. Can we create a one ourselves? Kim Hyun-bok asked, curious again. It seems you really don't remember anything, do you? Christina's voice was colder than a northeast winter wind. Kim Hyun-bok felt it was better to keep his mouth shut from now on. But indeed, what Kim Hyun-bok just asked wasn't wrong. Undead are the type of monsters that don't feel pain or fatigue, so they are extremely difficult to deal with. The only weakness they have is the core. Destroying the core is the only way to eliminate an undead. That is why when facing them, people always aim for where the core is hidden, like around the head or the left chest. But the undead I've met didn't have cores. Kim Hyun-bok's 10,000 Whys program continued. Christina explained that it's because low-level undead don't have cores. That thing needs to be formed over a long period and requires accumulating a certain amount of experience. So usually undead that haven't reached that age or level of cultivation don't have cores. Christina, Kai, and Castro were also undead without cores. But after today, Christina changed her mind. To explore the dungeon deeper, they needed to upgrade their power, but Kim Hyun-bok still didn't understand what upgrading power had to do with creating cores. Because according to everything Christina described so far, that thing was just a weakness. Cores have more advantages than disadvantages, Master. Christina sighed at Kim Hyun-bok's ignorance. Because with a core you can use magic circles and aura orbs. Those are very important for swordsmen and mages. Then why don't you have a core? Yet you can still use magic all the time. That is because until now I have been storing a certain amount of mana in my bones. But this method isn't really effective, so I'm asking everyone's opinion on creating cores now. Kim Hyun-bok didn't even need to think long because he knew Christina had no intention of harming him, so Kim Hyun-bok quickly agreed to it. It's just that the creation of the cores couldn't be done immediately because they were made of materials capable of absorbing mana such as special minerals, monster hearts, or gemstones. And currently among those things, gemstones were the only ones they had the potential to use. Moreover, they had to be pure gemstones to enhance the ability to absorb mana. Just hearing this, Kim Hyun-bak already knew where his problem was. Pure gemstones are very expensive, but currently, his budget was less than $30,000. According to Christina's research, the price of a 1-carat diamond with a diameter of 6.2 millimeters had reached $1,000 while the minimum diameter for a core was 5 centimeters. He didn't even need to calculate the exact figure to know he didn't have enough money to pay for it, not to mention there were 3 undead here, meaning they needed 3 cores. Is there any other way? Kim Hyun-bak sighed deeply. Of course there is. Wait a moment. Christina happily replied, then scurried off to find something. Not long after, Christina brought out a thick book from her private room with the title Business Plan. Looking at the appearance of this skeletal girl, Kim Hyun-bak guessed that Christina had prepared everything long ago. It turned out that asking for his opinion was just for show. He didn't even know who was the real master here anymore. Returning to the main issue, Christina said that money to buy gemstones wasn't a problem because she had come up with a super profitable product, which is spell cards. If they sell spell cards, they could make a huge profit enough to buy gemstones, and buyers could use the spell cards as trump cards in important battles. It's a win-win situation. Although the material to make spell cards, mana dust, isn't cheap, Christina had found a way to utilize it. To create 1,000 spell cards from 1 kilogram of material, even accounting for failure risks and labor costs, it is estimated that 1 card would be sold on the market for $3,000. After presenting her entire plan, Christina handed it to Kim Hyun-bak because after all, he was the master and his consent was still needed for Christina to realize her ideas. Kim Hyun-bak, having listened to her presentation, was like a brainwashed person only knowing how to take the plan and blindly sign his name. Kai and Castro could only sigh, seeing their master being led around by the nose by Christina. But at the end of the day, trusting Christina never seemed wrong. There was only one thing that worried Kim Hyun-bak, and that was the price. The $3,000 price tag seemed way too high, and he worried that no one would buy it. But Castro comforted him, saying that when it comes to saving one's life, money is no object. Kim Hyun-bak listened and started to feel that it made sense, so he grabbed a pen and signed the plan right away. Christina had even finished negotiating the sales process with the admin of the Dungeon website. After the admin spent a while singing the praises of the magic cards, they all agreed. They agreed immediately, and even promised to pin Christina's sales post to the top. With everything prepared so thoroughly, Kim Hyun-bak had nothing left to worry about, so he decided he would start setting up the magic card production line today. Besides that, they also had to make sure to clear dungeons regularly so they wouldn't get rusty. The get-rich-quick plan was officially underway. Kim Hyun-bak was incredibly happy just thinking about having his pockets full of money, but he was quickly brought back to reality because crafting spell cards was even more exhausting than fighting inside a dungeon. However, the cards being put up for sale were received even better than he imagined. Despite being listed for only 5 minutes, they were already sold out. Thanks to all the effort he put in, the balance in Kim Hyun-bak's account was now $449,327.58. That was the first time in his life he had ever seen that much money. This amount was plenty to act as a core nucleus. Christina wanted to get started on the crafting immediately, but Kim Hyun-bak was already exhausted, so he sheepishly pleaded, "Could you please let me rest for just one day? I am truly wiped out." Christina looked at him for a long time, then sighed. After all, they did have to move house anyway. Fine, just one day off. The process of crafting the nuclear cores by Christina went very quickly. Not long after, Kai and Castro had a gemstone heart in their chests. They both felt as if they had just been reborn with a flood of mana surging through their bodies. As for Christina, while she didn't show any over-the-top expressions, she was actually very happy too. Because now that they had the cores, using third circle magic was no longer a major concern. Does it really make such a big difference? Kim Hyun-bak asked, looking at the three of them skeptically. Honestly speaking, he couldn't feel any difference at all. And he had every right to be suspicious because these 3 cores cost a total of $1.6 million. If they didn't create any special results, that would truly be throwing money away. Christina knew Kim Hyun-bak regretted the cost, so she could only comfort him by reminding him that she had used the money to buy synthetic diamonds. Compared to natural diamonds, they could save a bit on costs. though the mana capacity of synthetic diamonds is only 70% that of natural ones, so Christina had put 5 of them into her own body to make up for quality with quantity. Kim Hyun-bok didn't fully understand what Christina was saying. He only knew that those 3 cores were genuinely useful to them, so he decided to use the dungeon app to check their new stats. The results were truly astounding. All their stats had increased, especially their magic power. It had gone up by a full 36 points. As long as the cores remain healthy, other changes may continue to occur, so let's check our stats every day. To prepare for the future, Christina added. Seeing their stats jumping up like that, Kim Hyun-bok was finally comforted knowing that he hadn't wasted his time and money for nothing. Castro was eager to jump into a dungeon right now, but Christina strictly forbade it. What we need first is to be certain that the cores have been attached correctly and that there are no issues with using mana. I will hold you responsible if the master dies because of unexpected problems. The tone and gaze of this fire-breathing lady really made him absolutely terrified. Castro immediately shrunk back. All right, I'll just practice at home first then. After a few days of practicing at home, it was finally time for the next dungeon raid. As soon as they got inside, Castro was eager to show off his ultimate technique to Kim Hyun-bok. He called it Sword Aura, which mercenaries usually had to reach A rank to be able to use. Kai wasn't about to be outdone by his comrade. After all, he was a trained knight, and his skill level was a notch above Castro's. Kai could even use Sword Aura continuously while Castro could only slash once. Not wanting to lose face in front of Kim Hyun-bok, Castro tried to keep up by using a series of Sword Aura attacks just like Kai, but after performing this ultimate move, he was just like Christina. Before collapsing on the ground because he ran out of mana. We gathered a lot of mana before coming here, and you already used it all. Are you sure you're okay? Kai and Christina could only sigh as they watched. Castro's competitive nature was something that just couldn't be fixed. Using Sword Aura for a large attack range usually consumes a lot of mana, and usually no one uses it if they are just in a one-on-one fight. Yet just to show off to Kim Hyun-bok, Castro had used a continuous aura slash just to take out a single goblin. That's just because I'm using it with this body. I was fine when I used it before, Castro shouted. Regardless, given Castro's current state, they couldn't proceed deeper into the dungeon anymore. Although this time it really was him being too extra, the mana issue still made Christina think. I think the basic problem is that our mana recovery is very weak. I will try experimenting with engraving a mana absorption array onto the cores. That sounded stable and amazing, but let's do that later, okay? After selling the 2 circles of magic cards, we are out of energy and out of money too. Kim Hyun-bok couldn't help but remind Christina he didn't want to have to keep working overtime to make magic cards. Like that. No, the main problem right now is that they have to head back before more monsters show up, because in this condition, Castro definitely couldn't fight anymore. Kim Hyun-bok was eager to return, but it's true what they say, the more you fear something, the faster it appears. Before he could even gather all of Castro's bones and open the magic teleportation gate, the enemy had already appeared. This time, it wasn't goblins, nor was it orcs. It was a pack of gnolls. They are half-human, half-hyena creatures that are incredibly ferocious. Kim Hyun-bok already felt cold sweat dripping down his forehead. Castro was already unable to fight. How were they going to deal with these monsters? Now, Master, please stay calm first, Christina reassured him, then raised her staff to start summoning her lightning magic. As soon as the lightning struck a dozen gnolls immediately, even after being knocked down, Christina didn't stop there. She continued using her ice breath magic to slow the enemy's movements, giving Kai the perfect chance to unleash a sword strike. It was a beautiful move, instantly taking out the rest of the remnants. Even without Castro, the 2 of them coordinated so smoothly and with such swift precision that it took a moment for Kim Hyun-bok to realize that his group had actually defeated the monsters. Seeing his master looking so disheveled on the ground, Christina couldn't help but offer a bit of advice. Master, a mage must always remain calm. If you panic, you can't push your skills to their full potential, and the worst-case scenario is that it could get you killed. Christina's words weren't harsh, but they made Kim Hyun-bok feel truly embarrassed. She was right. He really still had so many shortcomings. Seeing Kim Hyun-bok so discouraged that he hung his head, Castro shouted, "Hey, Master, you didn't do anything that bad. Please don't lose heart like that. Kai and Christina." Ed quickly added, "He's right, Master. Until just a few months ago, you were still just a normal human. And you've grown at a truly surprising rate, Master. You still have flaws because you've grown so fast, but since you have us now, don't worry. The feeling of guilt that Kim Hyun-bok felt earlier vanished, replaced by the embarrassment of being coddled like a child. Honestly, after the dungeon suddenly appeared, Kim Hyun-bok had always lived in a state of anxiety and exhaustion. But it seemed like after these three undead appeared, his life wasn't so bad anymore. That night, Kim Hyun-bok completely relaxed and fell into a deep sleep, and he had a strange dream. In the dream, Kim Hyun-bok saw himself in a bizarre space with 4 sides that were just pure white with no end in sight. He tried walking a few steps. He clearly knew he was dreaming and wanted to escape, but he couldn't find a way out. At the same time, he felt his chest suddenly heat up. His mana fluctuated violently, then poured out like a waterfall. Kim Hyun-bok started to feel anxious. He didn't know if this would cause any danger, but he couldn't stop it. As the mana kept gushing out and his body grew limp with fatigue, Kim Hyun-bok suddenly felt someone shaking him, accompanied by urgent calls. "Master, wake up!" Kim Hyun-bok opened his eyes wide. The first thing he saw was 3 skulls huddled together staring at him intently. They all looked worried to see Kim Hyun-bok caught in a nightmare. It turned out that earlier Christina had suddenly sensed an extremely abnormal mana wave in Kim Hyun-bok's room and dragged Kai and Castro in to check. They saw a lot of mana leaking from Kim Hyun-bok's body. If it kept going like that, he could be in danger, so they risked everything to shake him awake. This was exactly like what happened in his dream, but Kim Hyun-bok couldn't explain why. Furthermore, it wasn't Christina, Kai, or Castro who stopped that mana flow. It had just suddenly stopped on its own. After that, the mana flow within Kim Hyun-bok had become much more stable than before. "Wait, you all didn't do that, I did it myself," Kim Hyun-bok asked, half-doubting. After a while of being dazed, he raised both hands and skeptically cast a light spell. Then bright golden light erupted from both of his palms. At that moment, Kim Hyun-bok suddenly realized something. It seemed like he had truly mastered the mana source in his body. It was just like a CEO managing the employees in his company. Kim Hyun-bok could control the flow of mana in and out of his body and even transfer mana to Christina and the others. "Congratulations on becoming a true mage, Master. I didn't expect you to clear the 2nd magic circle in one go and reach the 3rd magic circle immediately." "How surprising," Christina remarked. Kim Hyun-bok could hardly hide his astonishment. Even though he knew he had mastered his mana, jumping straight to the 3rd magic circle was truly surprising. Kim Hyun-bok didn't even know what he had actually done to make such a leap. Magic is a discipline heavily influenced by the mind and enlightenment, just as I mentioned before. Clearing it in one go isn't that strange. "Enlightenment, that sounds so profound," Kim Hyun-bok said, full of self-doubt. Christina had to explain it to him. "Enlightenment doesn't necessarily have to be something grand. It's like realizing your own nature to advance to a higher level. Of course, the perception of each person's enlightenment will be different. For example, the realization you gained during your growth won't have the same value to others, but even so, mage clans have always shared their enlightenment, whether it was useful or not, and Christina was no exception. Therefore, Master, please, share your enlightenment with me." Christina suddenly grabbed Kim Hyun-bok's hand and begged. This was truly the first time he had seen that bony girl. Give him puppy dog eyes like that. All right, but let me eat something first, okay? I'm starving." Unfortunately, Christina insisted on hearing Kim Hyun-bok's insights. But first, so even though he was hungry enough to collapse, he had to tell Christina everything he had learned. After listening for a while, Christina concluded, "So that's how it is. From now on, you must study magic at all times." Kim Hyun-bok froze as soon as he heard that. "Why?" "Because with your potential, Master, the more magic you learn, the more your power will be maximized. So today, we'll have a special lesson. You have no time to waste. Let's start right now." And so, with an empty stomach, Kim Hyun-bok was dragged off by Christina under the helpless gazes of Kai and Castro. With his ability to control mana, combined with Christina's hellish training, Kim Hyun-bok had indeed made great progress. The trade-off was dark circles under his eyes, but he felt he was improving very quickly. Christina just pretended not to notice her master's haggard appearance. Every time they finished training with the dungeon monsters, Christina was always ready for the next session, regardless of whether Kim Hyun-bok had any strength left. Besides, there was one more procedure the three undead were looking forward to checking his stats. After every training session in the dungeon, Kim Hyun-bok was no longer surprised to see their stats increasing steadily. But today, something was different. Their classes had changed. Before, they were all listed as undead. Now Castro had changed to Warrior Kai to Assassin, and Christina to Mage. Furthermore, their level caps and ability thresholds had both increased. As for their skills, they remained the same. Yet Kim Hyun-bok seemed to be the only one surprised to see their new classes. It looked like they had all anticipated it. How did you all find out? Well, since we've changed, of course we'd notice. Plus, anyone looking from the outside could see the difference too, Kai said. Just as he stood up, Kim Hyun-bok noticed another issue. Both of these guys had grown quite a bit. Before, they were clearly the same height as him, but suddenly they were a whole head taller. Their presence was absolutely overwhelming, and the only consolation for Kim Hyun-bok was that Christina remained the same height. Even though she could feel the changes within herself, and even if Kim Hyun-bok didn't notice Christina's group, felt that he had changed as well. Kim Hyun-bok had successfully created a third-tier magic circle. This very achievement affected the creatures he had tamed, the three skeletons. To put it simply, as Kim Hyun-bok grew, the creatures he tamed grew stronger too. It seems their dungeon raids were becoming more and more promising. Speaking of dungeons, Kim Hyun-bok had recently learned some new spells and wanted to attack the dungeon again. However, the most influential member of the party, Christina, still disagreed. Even though Kim Hyun-bok had enough strength, it would be better to attack the dungeon if they had good equipment. As soon as Kai and Kesor heard the word equipment, their eyes lit up. It turned out that besides being busy training Kim Hyun-bok, Christina had specially crafted gear for these two as well. By the start of next week, once it was finished, they could continue their dungeon conquest. A week later, fully geared up, Kesor was eager to fight monsters immediately. With the new armor, their strength was also boosted by Christina's enhancement magic. Now, even if the monsters attacked, it would be like a mosquito biting stainless steel. Beyond strength, their speed was also increased through acceleration magic. The weight could also be adjusted due to weight reduction magic, and automatic recovery magic was applied to their weapons as well. Christina had imbued them with sharpness enhancement and automatic recovery spells. Compared to a week ago, both Kai and Kesor had become much stronger. Seeing them so happy, they were practically dancing. Kim Hyun-bok felt happy for them, and he was even happier when he got something too. Christina had specially crafted a cloak for Kim Hyun-bok, already imbued with enhancement, automatic recovery, and weight reduction magic. The pockets were imbued with spatial expansion magic, so it wouldn't be heavy to carry many items anymore. Hearing Christina say that, Kesor, who was nearby, immediately rushed over, reaching into Kim Hyun-bok's pockets to rummage around and test them, then stuffed a pile of things inside to verify. Although he didn't ask, he knew these items must have cost a lot of Christina's money and effort. But after all, if they wanted to go far in the dungeon, they had to invest as much as possible. Moreover, even though this gear was good, it was still, consumable. If they were attacked by stronger monsters, the wear on the gear would increase. Therefore, Christina couldn't help but remind the other three to take good care of their equipment. The long-winded instructions finally ended, and Kesor and Kai were already impatient to storm the dungeon. Kim Hyun-bok had finished accumulating mana, so the group of four stormed into the dungeon together. Just like last time, their first opponents were a pack of goblins. With one ogre as the leader, Kesor was eager to rush forward, but before he could act, Christina's fireball zipped past his face, taking out the entire pack of monsters in front of her. "Are you crazy?" Kesor shouted, complaining. "Last time it was because of your fireball that I lost my leg." "It was an accident. Don't get so worked up. I couldn't even measure my own strength back. Then besides, this time I just attacked first. That's all. It's completely different from last time." Christina and Kesor were like two kindergartners fighting over a lollipop, ignoring the fact that they were in a dungeon and starting to argue. Kim Hyun-bok and Kai tried to stop them, but it didn't help much. And what made matters worse was that while those two were bickering, the pack of monsters hit by the fireball left on the brink of death had all escaped. Kai poked his head out and looked ahead. There was a crowd of green-skinned goblins and ferocious hyenas packed together, blocking their path. Among them were some injured goblins. Kai turned back and said to the other three, "Looks like the monsters have gathered. About 50 of them. Kisor shouted, "These guys are gutsy, huh?" Hyunbok, Shin spoke up. "Good, let's take care of them all at once." Kai and Kisor threw the door wide open, startling the monsters. Christina and Hyunbok followed, holding their magic staffs. As soon as Christina held the fire card in her hand, she quickly raised her staff toward the monsters and shouted, "Fireballs! Immediately fireballs with terrifying power!" Shot forward. Dark smoke filled the air, but the monsters didn't seem to suffer any damage at all. In fact, one hyena monster even charged forward, wielding a sharp spear. 2 red streaks of light appeared instantly. Hyunbok calmly lowered his finger and shouted, "Flash!" A pale blue ring of light appeared in an instant right in front of Hyunbok's chest and blocked all the sharp spears of the monster pack. Not only that, he used the flash to control their own weapons, forcing all the sharp swords and spears to turn around. A large number of those weapons impaled the monsters' bodies, causing them to howl in pain. Kisor, itching for a fight, excitedly rushed to the front to claim his turn. "Now it's my turn!" He immediately rammed the sharp spikes on his armor into a hyena's face, but one hyena managed to dodge it. Kisor spun around and shouted, "Kai!" Kai slowly drew his sword and delivered a beautiful slash right through the body of the hyena charging at him. Countless thumping and crashing sounds echoed, scaring the goblins, at half to death, nearly making them pee their pants. They decided that running away was the best strategy. But Christina spotted them and quickly reminded her master. Hyunbok replied, "I know. Earthquake." He slammed his staff hard against the ground. Huge, sharp blocks of earth and stone quickly rose from the ground, blocking the goblins' escape route. Hyunbok announced, "Blocked the exit." Christina immediately waved her staff to cast ice shards. Pieces of ice as sharp as blades flew forward, impaling the goblins' backs and making them collapse. He happily exclaimed, "Nice!" Christina added, "This side is done." Hyunbok continued, "Now we just need to help Kisor's side." However, just then, Kisor walked up and said, "No need for that." He wiped the purple bloodstains off his armor and said, "It's all finished over here, too." Kai sheathed his sword and added, "That's right." The 4 of them gathered in a corner. Hyunbok happily exclaimed, "This went pretty well. Lucky us," Christina asked. "How's the gear?" Kisor immediately gave a thumbs up, confidently affirming, "Excellent, absolutely wonderful. I really love these horns on this armor." The horns on his armor were covered in goblin blood. It seemed he had sent quite a few monsters to the afterlife. Kisor continued, "Not just 1 or 2. He grinned and shouted, "My whole body feels enhanced." Kai also grinned sincerely and said, "I'm also very satisfied with the equipment. Thank you, my lady." Christina, standing nearby, smiled and joined in, "That's great." But suddenly Kisor's skeletal face wrinkled, emphasizing, "But there is a problem." Kai chimed in, "Yeah, there is a problem." Christina agreed. It seemed they all had the same thought. The 3 skeletons stared at Hyunbok, making him stammer as he asked, "Problem? What kind of problem?" Christina replied, "We're short on numbers." The monsters were already penniless, so you wondered about the number of Chris. I mean, you were worried there weren't enough people. Hyunbok didn't think it was that serious, so he just shrugged and said, "Take your time. It'll increase eventually, just let it be. It's nothing special." Chris fell silent for a moment before speaking seriously about the issue. "I have a few words, but let's get home first before we talk." "All right, let's head back." At their home, Chris opened the door first. Kai took the initiative and said, "We'll wait in the living room." Kessler, understanding that this was a private matter between a teacher and a student, didn't go in either. Seeing the 2 of them just standing outside, Hyunbok turned around surprised and blurted out, "Huh, what's this?" Then Chris cautiously reminded him before diving into the main topic. "Literally, since the master and I are both mages, the story I'm about to tell is very important." Hearing that, Hyunbok went quiet. He scratched his head and asked directly, "So what is it?" Chris didn't rush, gesturing toward the bed as he said, "First have a seat." Even though it was just a bed, Hyunbok obediently sat down. Suddenly, Chris asked, "Master, I've taught you a wide variety of spells, right?" Hyunbok acknowledged it. Chris continued, "Among them, are there any that were very easy to use, Hyunbok?" He answered instinctively, "Well, yeah, but why?" Suddenly, he startled, realizing Could it be Hyunbok recalled a scene from the past when he was sprawled on the floor throwing a tantrum? So tired. Do I really have to learn so many spells, Chris? Chris had patiently explained back then, one day every mage must decide on a specific school of magic to pursue. Until then, to make the right choice, you must learn as many different spells as possible. The more options, the better. Then he coaxed him, "Come on, get up. Let's continue the lesson. It's all for your success, master." Hyunbok reluctantly got up. Returning to the present, he replied to Chris, "I know now that it was all for the sake of choosing a school." Chris continued, "Yes, usually it's normal to choose a school under a teacher's guidance, but I'm not a formal teacher because the master's skills and mine are different." Chris pondered for a moment and advised, "Considering your skills, you could choose a school, or actually perhaps you've already made a choice for yourself, Hyunbok." Hyunbok expressed, "That's right. I decided a long time ago. I've thought a lot about it and believe this is the best path." He placed one hand on his thigh and the other on his chest. Hyunbok gave a firm answer, "I choose the school of necromancy." His eyes flashed with a brilliant golden light as he arrogantly declared, "I will perform the mana oath to become a true necromancer." The school of necromancy focuses on summoning and crafting undead creatures, golems, or kamiza. It is a school specializing in poisons, curses, and experimental reagents. In terms of offensive capability, it's in the top 5. Due to the nature of the magic it uses, it is considered hateful and dangerous. Chris pondered for a moment, then offered advice. "I think it's still a bit early to perform the mana oath. You could learn a few more spells first and decide later." Hyunbok rested his chin on his hand, silent for a while, then blurted out, "Once the mana oath is taken, the characteristics of mana will change based on the school rite." Chris confirmed it, adding, "Yes, that makes learning spells of that school easier." But he also reminded him, however, spells from other schools will become harder to learn or even impossible. Hyunbok clasped his hands together after hearing that, and remained determined. "Regardless, I've made up my mind." Chris wondered, "Why is that?" He held up 2 fingers and answered, "There are 2 reasons. First, every time I learn spells, from the necromancy school, I feel that if I choose this path, I can become much stronger." Chris asked, "I see. And what is the second reason?" Hyunbok smiled foolishly, tilting his head and scratching his cheek. A few seconds later, he confessed, "Because of everyone, Chris Kessler Kai." Hyunbok sincerely poured his heart out. "I don't think having you all by my side is just a coincidence. If I learn necromancy, I might be able to help you all." Chris listened in silence. Hyunbok smiled happily and added, "And your existence will also be beneficial to me." Chris gently said, "Is it due to destiny then? It really is different from other mages, isn't it?" Hyunbok grinned happily, even taking the chance to joke, "People often say mages can be impulsive at times, perhaps that's me now." Chris was still worried and reminded him once more, "It will be difficult." He replied casually, "I know that." He warned again, "You might be hated by many people." Hyunbok joked around, "That's tough, huh? My mental fortitude is a bit weak after all." He tilted his head, clenched his fist, and made a firm choice. "But I have no intention of changing my choice." Hyunbok said trustingly to Chris, "When I regret it or get tired, please help me. If I start to lose my way and do things I shouldn't, stop me. I'm counting on you, Chris." No sooner had he finished speaking than his door was kicked wide open. Hyunbok, in the middle of his heartfelt expression, was completely stunned. It was Kessler and Kai. Kessler pointed to himself and shouted loudly, "If the master has requested it, there is no other way. Leave it all to us." Kai was even more dramatic, bowing politely as he said, "As a guardian, advising and stopping the sovereign is a given, so do not worry. Are you listening?" Finally, Chris stopped trying to dissuade him and went along with it. "I understand the master's intention. I will not try to persuade you further." Hyunbok called out to Chris. Right after he clenched his fist and a small blue magic circle quickly appeared over his heart. "Hyunbok," Atreides spoke up. "All right then." He solemnly read the oath. "I, Hyunbok, hereby swear before the mana that I will walk the path of a necromancer." The blue light grew brighter on his chest. Hyunbok shouted the oath. Purple light sparkling like a galaxy immediately appeared around him, which made Chris exclaim in shock, as a streak of purple light emitted from Hyunbok's chest. Those lights even formed ribbons wrapping around him. Chris immediately congratulated him. "So you have become a necromancer. I hope you will become a successful mage in the future." Hyunbok patted his chest and replied, "Thanks, Chris." Then he scratched his head in confusion and asked, "But how? Do I get the magic books for the necromancy school?" Chris chimed in. "Don't worry about that. The dungeon website sells them." He asked suspiciously, "Really?" Chris hesitantly reminded him, "However, they are very expensive. A first-tier magic circle is 500 million, a second tier is 1 billion, and a third tier is 2 billion. Hyunbok asked hesitantly, "Can I afford that?" Kessler and Kai both looked at Chris. As for Chris, he guessed, "Perhaps we can afford the second-tier magic book." Sweat poured like rain down Hyunbok's face. He asked again just to be sure, "What's the account balance?" "To get the Necromancer's spellbook, you don't need to worry about that, Christ. It's for sale on the dungeon website. You doubtfully ask, for real, Christ, hesitantly mentioning it, though they are very expensive. A first-tier magic ring is 500 million, a second tier is 1 billion, and a third tier is 2 billion. Hyunbok hesitantly asks, "Can we really afford it?" Kessler and Kai both look toward Creed. As for him, he guesses, "Maybe we can afford the second-tier spellbook." Sweat pours down Hyunbok's face like rain as he asks again to be sure, "What is our current account balance?" So Creed immediately answered his master like this. He raised his hands high and shouted passionately, "From empty hands it comes, to empty hands it returns. So let's get rowdy." Hyunbok, feeling helpless, told Grit to spend less time on social media. He took a deep breath. Deep inside the dungeon, Hyunbok gripped his magic staff tightly and spoke up, "This time I'll try to go up alone. Provide cover for me." Kessler agilely assured him, "Leave it to me." He then started rummaging. Through some white bones in his pocket, Hyunbok tossed the pile of bones forward and chanted the spell. "Lazy skeleton, lazy white archer." A purple stream of magical energy suddenly pierced into the bones. Scattered on the ground, they were controlled by that magical flow, piecing themselves together and slowly standing up, forming a legion of white skeletons. Creed was surprised and blurted out, "There are so many." Hyunbok proudly boasted that he could still summon about 15 more. Kessler and Kai stood behind, chatting. "To be powerful, you have to rely on the summoned creatures. They surely aren't on the same level as the ones on this first floor, right?" Hyunbok it in, "Hopefully not. Let's test them out. Look, the enemies are appearing." A pack of hyenas was approaching. He raised his hand forward and ordered, "Charge my skeleton army." The skeleton legion, fully equipped with weapons, rushed at the fierce hyena monsters. The savage hyenas scratched at the skeletons, but were soon struck by several arrows. The skeletons grabbed the hyenas' heads and bit down hard on their shoulders. Their purple blood splattered like light rain. Before long, the skeleton legion had defeated the hyena pack. The hyenas were all sent to the afterlife, but several skeletons remained standing. Hyunbok was surprised and let out, "That was too easy, right?" Then he turned and modestly remarked that this level seemed quite useful so far. Before he could finish his sentence, Kessler happily praised him. "It's not just useful, it's impressive." Kai also smiled and commented, "With the right weapons, it'll be even stronger." Grit was more thoughtful, asking, "My lord, do you feel tired or notice any lack of mana?" Hyunbok replied, So far, so good." Creed also praised him endlessly. "Many undead creatures being summoned. Consume a lot of mana. I didn't expect you to be this amazing." Hyunbok, being complimented, puffed out his chest, his cheeks turning red. Creed continued, "If we use attack magic here, it will drain more mana, so we need to figure out how far we can explore." He excitedly declared, "All right today, we are going all the way to the end." Kessler laughed happily while Kai cautiously reminded him, "Even so, don't be careless, my lord." Finally, the system announced Dungeon number 795F rank. Time remaining until raid failure 148 days. Kim Hyunbok began the dungeon raid. After 127 days of searching, Leon couldn't hold back his anger and slammed his hand down on the table. "Damn it, missed it again." He tiredly asked Mark, "What about your side?" Then the assistant reported that all members of the guild had tried, but no one could buy any. On the phone screen appeared the second list of magic card exchanges. Leon sighed in exhaustion. I didn't expect us to have to resort to the black market. They dare to resell life-saving spell cards just for profit, and I couldn't buy a single one. Suddenly his phone vibrated. Leon immediately reached for it. The news on the screen made Leon's eyes widen. He excitedly jumped up. Before the door connecting to the basement, there was a package. Bring it here. The cardboard box was opened. Inside were 3 small boxes with very familiar packaging. Mark exclaimed, "Unbelievable! The person you helped is the actual supplier selling the spell cards." Accompanying it was a sincerely typed letter of gratitude. Leon laughed loudly. "Didn't I tell you, even if the success rate of those I help is only 1%, it's still gold." He joyfully hugged them. "Now I'll hand over the task of buying more spell cards to you, Mark, since I'm busy researching these things." He reminded him, "Remember to find time to go down to the basement and use them just in case." Leon replied with a cunning look, "I know. But wouldn't it be much more profitable if I could make the spell cards with my own hands?" Creed suddenly announced, "We probably have to sell more spell cards." Hyunbok felt annoyed. "Huh? We just finished the second sale." Kessler, sitting next to him, was busy staring at the rabbit-shaped apple slices Kai had made. It continued, "On the market. Counterfeit cards are appearing." Hyunbok was surprised. "Really?" Grit reported, "Currently, many fake cards are being sold on the market. Their effects aren't like the originals." He rubbed his chin in thought. "However, in terms of time and speed, they print and release fake cards onto the market much faster than we do." Creed smiled craftily. "So we must compete. To sell as much as possible, we must monopolize the product." He broke into a cold sweat and laughed awkwardly. "Gotta earn as much as we can, ha-ha." They were cautious with every step in the dungeon. Kai and Kessler went ahead, carefully scouting the surroundings. Hyunbok was a bit tense. "According to Walkero on the 3rd floor, there will be dire wolves and slimes. Be careful with those slimes. Their acid can damage your gear. Especially you two, Kessler and Kai, your gear is still new." Kessler doubted. "But can we completely trust Walkero?" Kai agreed. "That's right, the information on the 1st and 2nd floors didn't match." They judged that the bosses on the 2nd floor were much stronger than Walkero had said. Tall orcs were approaching. He and the others charged forward to open the path. The orc boss and the orc mage were both at the 3rd circle level. "Much stronger than I thought." Facing the boss's magic, Grit snapped his fingers and it instantly dissipated. The orcs were incredibly shocked, but orcs are just orcs. They became crazed and attacked only to be completely defeated in the end. He easily used his magic to absolutely crush the giant creatures before his eyes. Grit, bored, waved his hand. "If only it were stronger, I would summon it to our team, but its level isn't there yet." Hyunbok heard this and could only laugh awkwardly. Kai corrected, "Something's not right, my lord. By now, monsters should have appeared, but there isn't a single one. We should investigate the situation before moving forward." He scanned the area. "Since we came down here, I haven't felt any life signs at all." Kessler excitedly laughed and joked, "Maybe they were so scared they ran away." Grit glanced at him and suggested, "We'd better follow Kai's advice." Hyunbok understood. "All right, I'll summon the ghosts to scout." He called forth black ghosts that gently floated up. Hyunbok pointed and gave them tasks. The round-eyed and flat-eyed ones received their orders, and one by one the ghosts departed. He guessed, "They must be hiding somewhere to ambush us." You replied, "Even though we are stronger, we can't let our guard down. Let's use that power to scout the situation." Hyunbok shared his vision with the ghosts. Many scenes in the dungeon appeared. A large, very mysterious-looking door suddenly appeared. He was startled. Moving out, he guesses they must be hiding somewhere waiting to ambush us. "Chang," you reply. "Even though we've gotten stronger, we can't let our guard down. We should use that power and to scout out the situation." Hyunbok shares his vision with the specters. Many scenes from the dungeon appear, and a large, mysterious-looking door suddenly emerges. He jumps in surprise. My eyes widened in shock. I think I just saw something. Once we locked onto the target, everyone moved quickly to the door. "This has to be the boss's room." It's the only place left. There are signs of life here. All four of us looked up bewildered, but I couldn't go inside because that room is where dungeon explorers go to, get wiped out. The miasma radiating from it was suffocating and kept spilling out. Kessler confirmed it firmly. The boss is an undead. Hyunbak was surprised. You're sure Kai and Chris? I didn't object. Maybe because we're undead too, we could sense it immediately. Based on the characteristics of undead, the monsters appearing around here, whether high level or low level, are very hard to deal with. In the worst case scenario, we could be overwhelmed. You worried? Anyway, we're already here. Before we head back, let's try to scout the monsters. In here, I can use magic, but be careful. If the boss is undead, it will detect the magic. Summon one to go in. It moved slowly, looking extremely cautious, slowly approaching the shadows. It hid behind a pillar and stole a peek. In the center of the room, darkness covered everything. The gloom was absolutely terrifying. Gradually, a monstrous skeleton figure came into view. Hyunbak recoiled in fear. What the hell is that? He was so terrified that he fell flat on his back. Oh my God. Hyunbak's facial muscles tightened. This isn't a dream, right? How? Could something like this be here? Kai and Kessler stared at each other, feeling awkward. Hyunbak clutched his head in misery and collapsed onto the table. Grid sighed. Now tell us what you saw in the boss room. Hyunbak brooded for a moment before saying, a dragon. The three of them were completely stunned. He thought then spoke in detail, a dragon with withered white bones. A bone dragon, Chris concluded. Withered white bones. Those aren't just bones. Hyunbak jumped up, startled. What? She continued. Dragons are entities that can alter creation itself because of that all of a dragon's traits are reflected in its appearance. A dragon with white bones must be a white dragon that dwells on the ice mountain. The bones of a white dragon radiate a type of freezing aura that can turn everything around it into ice. You asserted, but I didn't see any ice or snow in the boss room, I'm sure of that. Grid ruled it out. Then the dragon must be something else. Ghost bone dragon wearing a dragon's skin. Its bones are made from the skeletons of other creatures. A Frankenbone dragon. Hyunbak muttered, repeating it bewildered. A Frankenbone dragon. It confirmed, right. A Frankenbone dragon needs a very long time to take shape, which is why the dragon you saw isn't fully complete yet. Besides, I just came up with a hypothesis after our last trip down to the dungeon. You asked a hypothesis. Grid was excited. That hypothesis is called dungeon capacity. Dungeons have tiers and the levels of the monsters are arranged based on those tiers. Therefore, the level as well as the number of monsters will be limited by the defined tier. Based on that hypothesis, we can see why there were no monsters on the third floor. It is because that dragon monster had took up all the capacity of the entire floor. If that hypothesis is true, that single dragon monster will be as strong as all the monsters on the third floor combined. But no matter what, it's still within the limits of an F-rank dungeon. We still have a chance to win. Hyunbak probed. Do you really think so? Chris sighed. Yes. Don't worry. I will ensure we survive and win. For our master and for us. You were moved to the point of being stunned when you heard those words. Hyunbak thought to himself, and for her own sake too. He smiled and said, help me ensure victory, Chris. You're very reliable. She replied, of course. After that, they were happy and laughing together. Kessler interrupted, feeling left out. Hey, did you two forget something? Kai, it hurts. We're here too, Lord. Hyunbak quickly made an excuse. I know I'm counting on you two as well. I didn't forget. From that day on, we continued to train each of us. And 3 months went by. They encouraged each other. Phew, I'm still worried. We're all prepared, Lord, be confident. Yes, at least this floor is the final floor. Hyunbak reminded them, I know, everyone is ready, but we won't get a second chance. We must win. You touched the door leading to the final floor. A powerful pressure surged, almost overwhelming me. It was definitely stronger now. The bone dragon reigned amidst countless white bones, just like it roared insanely. It stomped hard and skeletal remains crawled up from the ground. Hyunbok thought, but not yet. Out of control. Grid frowned, shouting to signal, "Master!" Following the plan they had discussed beforehand, he said, "Got it. Summon skeleton warriors." A few skeletons appeared. They were fierce and stronger than the bone dragons. Hyunbok relied on them. "I'll leave the commanding to you, Kai." The guy replied, "Please trust me." The bone dragon suddenly let out a crazy roar. You were startled and immediately turned to the dragon. Red swirling surges of power rushed out. Hyunbok realized it was trying to take control of his skeleton army. You immediately retorted, "No way! In hell, you're not taking them from me!" A shockwave appeared, completely blocking that gloomy aura. Seeing the plan fail, the bone dragon roared, signaling its army to attack. Hyunbok shouted, "Kessler!" He replied immediately, "Ready." Power swirled like a black hole enveloping it. The bone dragon exploded. Kessler laughed loudly, full of sarcasm. "How does that feel, you bag of bones, that expensive gem bomb? We saved it just for you." Unfortunately, it was completely unfazed and even wiped out their entire skeleton army. "This we need more skeletons, Master." You smirked. Understood. Every time the dragon was wounded, more Lolas would appear. "We can't drag this out," Kai the guy shouted. "Wait a second," Kessler urged. "There's no other way." Kai. He immediately got into a fighting stance. "Clear," Kessler complained. "Damn it! The silver armor we're wearing is great for resisting zombies, but it blocks the absorption of mana." Kai retorted. "If you have time to complain, just attack." Kessler lunged wildly. "Got it." "Oh, my weapon!" The staff broke in half. Kessler gripped, the weapon in his hand, trembling with bitterness. Annoyed, he threw it straight at the bone dragon's head. "Why don't you just die already?" It hit right between the eyes. It was obviously pissed. The bone dragon roared madly. A powerful gust of wind slashed toward Kessler. He dodged it hurriedly. Kai was annoyed because he almost got hit since he was standing right next to him. He growled, "Kessler, the staff in Hyunbok's." Hand glowed. "Summon clay golem." The ground suddenly erupted with several slimy, sticky creatures. The bone dragon rushed forward wildly to attack. It roared insanely. With just a few slashes, all the golems were taken down. However, due to their unique properties, they immediately stuck to it with clay. This is exactly what they were trying to create. You shouted, "Grid magic circle, a powerful..." Ibbo magic circle was completed. It glowed brightly. It was ready. With determination, you shouted, "Here I come!" Mana began to wrap around the mud, holding the bone dragon tight. It struggled frantically. Grid. Explode. The three-angled blast surely destroyed the bone dragon. As the dust settled, its neck vertebrae were bare. The bone dragon had lost its head. It stood perfectly still, frozen. They were thrilled. "Perfect. The nucleus in its head has been destroyed." Hyunbok sighed, exhausted. He looked terrible. "We won. We actually won." Suddenly, a chilling sound echoed. It didn't explode," Kessler gasped. Hyunbok couldn't react in time, looking around blankly. The air was chaotic. "Damn it, what the hell is going on, my lord? We have to..." "Get out of here, the bone dragon that was so hard to trap. It's still moving without its head." No way, the bone dragon isn't..." A monster suitable for an F-rank dungeon. A bone dragon appearing in an F-rank dungeon like this must be a gift from the goddess of fate. The boss designated for the third floor was supposed to be a summoning orb, but that orb was nearly destroyed by previous dungeon raiders. That despair gave birth to the bone dragon. However, the summoning orb couldn't control the bone dragon. It was too powerful. The orb stared blankly as the bone dragon lifted its leg over its head. After breaking free from its restraints to survive, the bone dragon devoured everything around it. The dungeon raiders, its creator, and even the summoning orb. No matter how many monsters the dungeon respawned, because it hadn't fully formed yet, there was no nucleus in its head. That explains why the bone dragon could still move even after losing its head. It twitched. The sound of bones clattering against each other echoed. "I will kill you." The head that had exploded began to slowly regenerate. "I will kill you." Its blood-red eyes glowed with cruelty. Hyunbok jumped in shock. The pressure was insane. He quickly regained his composure. "Grid, use your strongest spell. We'll buy you time." She looked startled. "I I understand. Hyunbok calculated. He had poured all his mana into the previous attack, so maybe Grid could... Suddenly, Kessler's voice boomed. Look here, my lord, come get my mana, damn it, I'm stuck here. He took it. Thanks, Kessler. I'm borrowing your mana, Kessler said generously. Take it all. A flow of mana began to emerge between them, but the bad news was that even with Kessler's mana, it wasn't enough. Hyunbok was still hesitant. The only way was that method, but it was so risky. He closed his eyes and steadied his focus. Silence enveloped him. Hyunbok sighed. So this is what it feels like to have your life force drained. He muttered to himself, feeling like he was losing something very precious. Even though mana was surging, he felt hollow. Grid, as if sensing his unease, turned to ask. Master Hyunbok reassured her. It's okay, Grid. We have to survive today. To have it tomorrow? A few clay goblins appeared. Just stay alive and get out of here. Kessler nimbly threw bombs. I can still use my hands. Watch this. Small scattered explosions appeared one after another. The bone dragon glared in anger, narrowing its eyes to focus on the target. Very quickly, the bone dragon spotted Chris and Hyunbok. Look over there, my lord, watch out. It lunged madly, ignoring the wall of goblins in the way. The bone dragon unleashed a powerful, mana-charged strike. Kessler realized it immediately. Dragon breath, hide quick. Grid quickly erected a magic barrier to protect everyone. It unleashed a powerful blast, shattering all the goblins and even destroying the barrier Grid had created. Hyunbok hurriedly raised his hands to shield himself. A moment later on the field, only he remained along with piles of shattered bones. His staff was broken into pieces. Hyunbok coughed up blood, writhing in pain on the ground. Damn it! He struggled to stand and looked up. The armor was still there, but all three skeletons had crumbled. Hyunbok shivered in fear. His comrades had been torn to pieces to shield and protect him. The bone dragon was still powerful, standing there growling. It was a truly desperate situation. The enemy was too strong. His body couldn't move, and none of his comrades had enough strength to fight. Hyunbok was determined. But I can't die like this. Telepathy. He knew there was still one way, but this method was extremely risky. There was a chance of failure. Hyunbok resolutely lunged forward even though the success rate was low. He still had to try. He gritted his teeth with determination, ready to face it. Hyunbok touched the bone dragon and shouted, Surrender now, submit, and follow my laws. Both of them were suddenly pulled into a different dimension. The bone dragon growled in anger. Human, don't even think about controlling me. I am a mighty dragon. He boldly retorted, Nonsense, you're just a knockoff. A cheap imitation from some bootleg factory, you know, a fake, Hyunbok declared. So what if you're a fake? There's no law that says a fake can't be cooler than the real thing. Submit to me, I'll upgrade you to surpass the real dragons. It was ferocious. A human dares to... He quickly answered back. It's because I'm human that I say that. Humans always face endless challenges. You know it yourself, developing on your own won't get you far. But if you side with me, you'll go much further. The proof is right there, Chris, Kessler, and Kai. They have developed beyond imagination, Hyunbok boldly declared. Come to my side and let's move forward together. If you don't surrender, then you and I must die together. I am your master. The space quickly sank. It took him into silence. Afterward, he was able to touch the bone dragon's head. Hyunbok finally felt relieved and relaxed. Exhausted, he closed his eyes and slowly fell to the ground. A large, bony hand caught Hyunbok. He chuckled and sighed in relief. I survived. The bone dragon's eyes glowed purple, showing it had submitted. F-rank dungeon 0795. 329 days since the dungeon raid began. Raid complete. What Hyunbok promised echoed, I will become strong. Upgrade my power bit by bit, and then become the mightiest dragon, stronger than the real dragon species. He secretly had hoped. You have to keep that promise. Don't go back on your word. That skyscraper. In Gangnam. From the outside, it looked like any other ordinary office building. However, this place was actually the headquarters of the dungeon supporters, the people who secretly assisted dungeon raiders. In the director's office, a secretary in formal attire was reporting to his superior. I'm here to report on the results of clearing F-rank dungeon 0795. The director was sitting at the desk opposite him. His work seemed very busy. F rank. If it's just a normal F rank, there's no need to report it to me. But the secretary said, "But this case is very special, sir. You should check the details yourself. It'll be much faster." Hearing this, he took the file the secretary handed over, holding a thick stack of papers in his hand. As he flipped through it, he asked, "Why is it so thick? What happened?" He had just finished speaking when his face suddenly turned pale and his eyebrows furrowed in confusion. Then he slammed the file onto the desk, his expression filled with disbelief. "This can't be. It's rare for someone to clear dungeons on their own without actually being known." The story behind it is even more interesting. It was an F-rank dungeon, but a bone dragon appeared. Moreover, it was tamed. The person who tamed it was the one who produced the spell cards. He is a third circle summoner. Beside him, he also has Chris, a master-rank swordsman, and an unnamed mage presumed to be of the fourth circle. He also has a very special talent ranking. After saying that in a rush, he slammed both hands onto the desk. "I also possess a very special talent." After saying that, the guy slams both hands down on the table and, standing up abruptly with an irritated attitude, he demanded, "Why am I only just now being briefed on this talent?" Under the searching gaze of his superior, the secretary quickly scrambled to explain the dungeon raid. It was on the verge of failure. "That's why the staff didn't pay much attention to that case. I will discipline everyone involved in this incident," he said in a stern voice. "Immediately. Even though it's late, this control needs to be managed tightly again. Hurry and increase support." The secretary spoke clearly. "Understood, sir." He sat back down in his chair, exhaling a long, dissatisfied breath. The flood has receded. Having just received relief, who could possibly be satisfied? What a headache. Waking up from his delirium, Hyunbok's mind was still stuck on that battle. I survived, but I was defeated. If the bone dragon hadn't attacked with its dragon breath at that moment, lying on the bed, he wore a dejected look. Damn it! Grit saw that he had finally woken up and went over to check on him. "Are you awake, my lord Kai and Kessler?" "No one died, but regardless, Grit died protecting me from the dragon's breath. When attacked, they had moved the skull out of the dragon's breath range to avoid casualties. After I woke up, Grit explained everything in detail. It said, to prevent exposure, we swapped the location of the core. For the good of the group, we only moved the core when absolutely necessary, and thanks to that, we managed to survive. It's good to be able to learn from mistakes, but no matter what, regret is a toxic emotion, because the past is just the past." Hyunbok smiled at Grit. He replied, "Looking at the results, our raid was a complete success. Even though we were slightly injured, no one died. I even managed to tame Nahak." Hearing this, Nahak looked displeased. It immediately refuted his words. "You didn't tame me. It was I who allowed you to tame me." As soon as it finished, he lazily replied, "Yeah, I know." Creed spoke up. "Those who have been named by the master develop their own ego and have the opportunity to become more powerful. Don't forget, you still owe a debt to the master, and you are still under the master's control. Remember to etch that into your mind until you die." A wave of dark power accumulated right on Hyunbok. Nihak heard it say that, and let out a click of its tongue, not forgetting to remind him, "Don't forget your promise. If you betray the promise to make me the strongest dragon, I will kill you and use you as a footstool." Hearing its threat, he didn't show any fear, but replied with extreme confidence, "I value my life too, so I will keep my promise." This answer made it feel very satisfied. The sunlight outside the window shone into the room through the glass, hitting Hyunbok's eyes, directly making him squint in annoyance. He looked up at the sky outside, and Hyunbok muttered to himself, "I really want to go out soon." Because he had completed a dungeon raid, he had the right to go outside for a short time. Grit knew he was feeling bored, so it spoke up to comfort him. "It's not a problem. Your free time is counted from when you leave the hospital. Your injuries have recovered a lot. Rest for about 15 days and you can freely go outside." Just as it finished speaking, Kai and Kessler opened the door and walked in. They had just happened to hear the conversation between the two. Kessler spoke up. "You still want to go out? You must have recovered a lot." "Already right." He saw them and asked curiously, "What's wrong?" Kessler Kai. Kessler pointed toward Kai standing behind him and said, "Nothing, we came here because Creed and Kai have to switch shifts. Someone came to change shifts so Creed didn't linger here long." Before leaving, it said to Hyunbok, "All right then, I'm going to the spell card and equipment room." Kessler also didn't stay behind and slipped out immediately. "Looking at how healthy you are, Master, I'm going to go have fun. I have a date with a lady." After the two left, Kai stepped closer to him, his voice now full of concern. "Master, are you feeling unwell anywhere?" Looking at it, he replied, "I'm fine now. You can go ahead and enjoy yourself." Kai, hearing this, only replied with 2 words, "Understood." After that, it naturally sat down in a chair and started reading a book. Sometime later, when Hyunbok had fully recovered, he couldn't wait any longer and quickly put on his clothes. Neatly then opened the door to explore the outside world. The look on his face at that moment could not hide his excitement. Even the rays of sunlight shining through the window made his mood become indescribable. Stepping out of the building, before his eyes was a bustling scene with people and vehicles moving about. His eyes welled up with tears, unable to suppress the emotion in his heart. Kessler was just as excited as him. "Finally we get to go sightseeing. Before we only saw this world through computers. How thrilling." Kai appeared extremely expectant. "I can't wait anymore, my lord." Nihok was also seeing the world for the first time. "Is this another world? I lost the memories of the world I used to live in, so I'm very curious." Grit spoke up, "Because we are hiding in Nihok's subspace and connected to your consciousness, so feel free to experience it." Hyunbok shouted, "All right, let's go." Walking on the streets, crossing from one road to another, from one famous location to another, and from daytime until deep into the night. Time passed so quickly, they didn't seem to show any signs of fatigue. Hyunbok held a hot cup of coffee in his hand, looking extremely satisfied. Today was really fun. Time to head back. A month passed quietly. His words received no response. This made him unable to help but helplessly ask them once more, "You guys don't want to go back yet?" On the way back, Grit was a bit curious and asked him, "I'm surprised I didn't think after the free time. As she was up, you would head home immediately, Master." His eyes remained focused ahead, smiling slightly. Then he replied, "Initially I didn't plan on that, but everyone has a place to return to. Leaving and then returning is natural. I'm simply returning to where I belong. From now on, we'll have to be busy spending the remaining time traveling the country to find a new house. If I don't go back right now, I'll just get lazy again." A moment later, a black taxi arrived to pick him up. He sat inside the car. The driver saw him out at midnight and asked with concern, "Are you a tourist visiting Seoul?" He asked suddenly, making him unable to react, dazed for a moment before answering, "Huh, oh yes." The driver spoke again. "Going here, and there is good, but you should go home early. It's been chaotic lately." He heard that, and was a bit suspicious, asking back, "What do you mean, chaotic?" The driver explained that there have been many missing person cases lately, 50 in total across the country, and the creepier part, all of them were found lying in a pool of blood. He gently stroked his chin, gave a soft, "Oh," and replied dismissively, "I see," inside some small space. Then he turned to the others and asked, "What do you guys think? The monsters in the dungeon must be glitching." They replied excitedly, "That seems likely, but Master, it's not necessarily the monsters. It's not just monsters that kill. Humans can kill each other too." Listening to them, Hyunbok rested his chin in his hand, lost in thought, wearing a look of boredom. "It could be something we haven't considered yet." Then how do you want to handle this, Master?" He replied, "Do nothing. After all, I'm just an ordinary human with these 2 small hands. What I can do is limited. As long as it doesn't involve me, it's fine. And I don't want to throw myself into danger for things beyond my control." As soon as he finished speaking, they immediately praised his wise decision, calling it very wise. "That's right, Master. A magician must know their limits. Risking your life only leads to death. Many have lost their lives just by meddling in things unnecessarily. It's a good thing you didn't. A rush into unnecessary danger. You have a responsibility to serve and keep your promise to us. We will all follow your decision, Master." Stepping out of the taxi, a small snowflake landed gently on his shoulder, followed by a sky full of falling snow. It lifted his gloomy mood, making him feel cheerful. Standing in the snow, he muttered to himself, "Thanks." Everyone, after some searching, Hyunbok finally found, a suitable house. He slowly opened the door. Greeting him was a dark, gloomy space. This was the room connected to the dungeon. Seeing this, he immediately wanted to be lazy. Free time ends too quickly. He closed the room door. Grit suddenly appeared behind him and spoke. People always say that when you're having fun. Time flies. Moreover, finding a new house kept us busy. Time really does fly. Looking around the house, he felt extremely satisfied. This house is so spacious, I'm very pleased. Finally, I can let Nighthawk out. It couldn't come out at the old house. Under this house was a flow of mana, also known as a mana vein. It was the optimal environment for mages to develop. Crit spoke up. Buying this place for such a cheap price is a huge stroke of luck. More importantly, we must prepare to explore the new dungeon. Kai and Kessler emerged from Nighthawk's small space. Kessler said, I haven't gone out for a whole week. My hands are itching for action. Mentioning this, Hyunbok immediately pulled out his mobile phone and said, That reminds me there's probably a new mission now. The three of them gathered around him. On the phone screen, a new mission appeared. Mission Dungeon Rank F 1139. Upon completing, the first dungeon raid explorers must face higher-level dungeons such as Rank F+. Please be careful because this might be a dungeon with a rank similar to or slightly higher than the dungeon you previously raided. This dungeon N is likely to be more dangerous and arduous. Do not be arrogant. Do not be careless. Always watch your surroundings and clear this dungeon as soon as possible. Looking at the rank of the mission, they couldn't help but sigh. I thought the next dungeon would be Rank A. It's just Rank F+. It should be a piece of cake. Crit didn't think so. It said, This is a good thing. This time we will get to experience a true Rank F dungeon. Hyunbok was still staring intently at the phone, and only then did he speak in a serious tone. You all are too laid back, aren't you? In the previous dungeon, a special creature like Nighthawk was born, so there is a high possibility that the Rank F+ dungeon will be much more dangerous because the rank is higher. Crit had once said no one knows what will happen in a dungeon. Being confident is good, but don't be conceited. Being careless and arrogant will only lead to death. Grid felt his words were very reasonable. You are absolutely right. We were too unguarded just now. Thank you for the reminder. Both Kai and Kessler also felt extremely ashamed of their shallowness. We are very sorry, Master. Actually, I knew that being careless was not good, but I stupidly made that mistake. I'm sorry. Looking at them, he could only helplessly say, That's fine. As long as everyone is a bit more alert, that's enough. All right, let's plan the second raid. Hearing that, Kessler immediately became excited. Great, let's get pumped, everyone! At a Rank F+ dungeon, miserable screams echoed through the space. Help me stop! A young man sat motionless, leaning his back against a rock. Deep down, he was still incredibly confused. How did it come to this? In front of him, a ferocious monster was devouring his teammates alive. Screams rang out continuously. Monster! It all started when my house was linked to a dungeon. Initially, I was very scared, but after joining a group of dungeon explorers, we successfully cleared the dungeon, even though a few people lost their lives. After having some free time, I had the opportunity to interact with my teammates outside the dungeon. I was deeply moved. Right at that moment, we decided to form an alliance. We would make this alliance the strongest in Korea or even the strongest in the world. That was just a dream. That dream seemed to have been extinguished in this very moment as those miserable screams still kept ringing in his ears. Everything was so hard to accept. The monster had devoured each of his teammates one by one. It was a brutal scene that made him find it hard to believe. Is this the end? As he accepted his fate, closing his eyes and waiting for death, a strange voice spoke from somewhere. Should I take revenge for you? His eyes immediately snapped open, bewildered, not understanding what was happening. The mysterious voice continued whispering into his ear, Shh, speak softly. It's very smart. If you want, I will take revenge for you, but I need information about it. We had just entered this third dungeon not long ago. Sweat dripped down his face as he gritted his teeth in hatred. I will tell you everything I know. After he finished speaking about the information regarding the dungeon monster, the voice spoke up again. A wandering boss with the ability to grow, huh, it seems? That warning wasn't unnecessary. The walking skeletons under Hyunbok's control surrounded the boss. Looking at those intending to attack the monster, the beast let out a furious roar and swung its arm at a skeleton, shattering it instantly. More skeletons swarmed toward it, and the beast, it let out another angry howl. Two skeletons teamed up and managed to land hits on its leg and shoulder. Startled, the beast turned and bolted. It dove into a spatial rift and vanished. Hyunbok stepped up to where it had disappeared. Thinking it had gotten away, he cursed under his breath. Damn it, it escaped. The young man stared wide-eyed at the masked man standing before him. Suddenly he screamed, "Look out!" Behind Hyunbok, the beast had reappeared. It swung its fist with brute force toward him. But things didn't go as planned. The young man's eyes widened in sheer shock. What the hell is that? A massive skeletal foot burst out from a spatial black hole, crushing the beast beneath it. Its head and wings emerged, and soon its full form was revealed. Staring at the man, and the creature before him, the boy couldn't help but tremble. A bone dragon. Hyunbok immediately corrected him. It's not a bone dragon, it's a Scotland. Just a dragon type. It's far weaker than a bone dragon, but one day it will be even more powerful than a real dragon. Nahok roared as if trying to say something. Hyunbok glanced at the creature, then back at the boss. He then said, "Your first gift. Nihok, finish it." That was followed by a chorus of miserable, agonizing screams as the beast was torn apart. Hyunbok crouched down in front of the young man and continued, "More importantly, your condition. It doesn't look too good, does it? How about this? If you agree to my terms, I'll restore your arm." The young man looked at him, disbelieving. "For real," Hyunbok replied, "I don't do charity. I already told you it's a deal. Can you do it?" The boy heard this and suddenly shouted, "I'll give you everything, please!" Hyunbok pointed a finger at him and said calmly, "Everything, huh? You shouldn't say that so lightly. I'm not a bad guy anyway, so I'll just take your soul." Constant clicking sounds echoed through the room. On the computer screen, an email popped up. Legal spell card trading. We are emailing customers who may have purchased counterfeit spell cards. Fake cards have low effectiveness and a high risk of exploding. Our authentic spell cards are crafted using a secret method passed down from the creator. Note, the effectiveness of our cards has been verified by the admin department. Chris and the others crowded around Hyunbok. He spoke up. The sales department has started dealing with it, see? Chris felt extremely annoyed at this moment. That took forever. I already provided the detailed production and analysis methods, yet it took them a whole month to finish. Hyunbok looked at her with a wry smile and said helplessly, "Cut them some slack, Chris. They're not as skilled as you. They haven't even been studying magic for a year yet." Back to the E-rank dungeon. Hyunbok was still negotiating with the young man. "If you agree to soul bind with me, I will restore your arm." One of the boy's teammates didn't believe a word he said and suddenly shouted, "Restore his arm! How is that even possible?" But Hyunbok didn't offer much explanation, simply replying, "It's possible." This left the man stunned on the spot. Walking closer to the young man, Hyunbok added, "I know. What I said is hard to believe, so let's try it out." The boy was confused, not knowing what Hyunbok was planning. A purple light began to glow from his arm, and then a magic circle was activated right over the young man. Restore. The moment he finished speaking, the young man's arm underwent a transformation. His eyes widened in disbelief. The arm that had been bitten off was restored in the blink of an eye. "My arm." Looking at the mysterious masked man with curiosity and shock, he asked, "You can even do that? Who are you?" Hearing this question, Hyunbok thought to himself that he shouldn't give his real name. After a few seconds of silence, he made up a name. "I'm one Hyo." The boy whispered the name to himself, "One Hyo." In his eyes, Hyunbok seemed to be radiating the light of 10,000 Buddhas. So when Hyunbok asked again, "Now shall we make the deal?" the boy immediately agreed. "Yes, I'll make the deal with you, please." That day, Hyunbok gained 21 soul-bound partners. Hyunbok demanded two things first. They were never to reveal any details about the contract. Second, they had to give him the mana crystals they received as rewards after successfully raiding a dungeon. In return, he would gift them a production manual. for spell cards. They could sell the cards and earn a commission. This was his master plan to make a fortune from spell card profits. Like this, they didn't have to work and still got paid. Is this what you call passive income? Hyunbok laughed, haha, and replied, exactly. Kai looked thoughtful and said, I didn't expect the Lord to make deals with others like this. Kessler was also very surprised. You once said you didn't want to recruit any more factions. Hearing them bring this up, Hyunbok habitually touched his neck and replied calmly, it's true I did say that. Because recruiting and managing factions is a huge pain. But after careful consideration, I realized I need a faction to protect myself. A soul bind is similar to a mana oath, it's a binding contract. They can act freely, but when I need them, I can use them. They have to keep the contract secret so no one will know about the relationship between me and them. Kai mused, a master-servant relationship known only to the parties involved. You've become the secret manipulator from a novel, my lord. Hearing such an exaggerated description, Hyunbok was stunned for a moment, then reacted embarrassed, covering his face to deny it. It's not like that. Kessler looked at him, laughing happily. Hee, don't be shy. Being teased by him, Hyunbok shouted in confusion, Stop messing with me, Kessler! While they were still chatting, suddenly the phone on the table rang, showing a new notification. Picking up the phone, he said seriously, It's time. Well, there probably won't be any more monsters this time, right? He had mentioned this before they even entered the dungeon. Grit immediately felt that was a bad omen. Her voice, Istina full of dissatisfaction, said, Hey, watch what you say, that might actually come true. Their next mission was E-Rank Dungeon number 1313. After completing the dungeon raid, you will be qualified as a true raider capable of handling anything, but never be careless. Never. Lose your guard, otherwise the dungeon will swallow you whole and force you to pay with your life. Current members, 90/90. Time remaining 500 days. Reward for completion, dungeon raid. You have met the requirements to become a true raider capable of handling anything, but never be complacent, never. Never let your guard down, or the dungeon will swallow you whole and force you to pay the price with your life. Current members, 90/90. Time remaining 500 days. Reward for completion. After reading the mission details, Grit immediately spoke up. Even if there are mutants, we've already prepared for them, so you don't need to worry. Well, saying that is one thing, but don't be like that inside the E-Rank dungeon, Kessler shouted angrily while wearing his buffalo-horned helmet. I'm bored to death. Why aren't there any monsters? It's been 30 minutes already, you know. How can you be so bored? The others stared at him. Having lost all patience, they couldn't help but shake their heads in frustration. Hyunbok called out Kessler. He still shouted back, I really wanted to try out my new gear, damn it. Just as he was about to add something, Hyunbok suddenly sensed something. His eyes widened as he said, Wait, everyone stop. Hearing this, they immediately stopped moving. He said excitedly, Finally, they're showing their faces. What is it this time? Orcs? Or maybe werewolves? Listening to his question, Hyunbok helplessly placed a hand on his face, shook his head, and said, No, they're humans. Dungeon explorers. Hearing that, Kessler clicked his tongue in dissatisfaction and asked, How far away are they? Hyunbok replied, About a 15-minute walk. There are 19 of them in total. They have crossbows and that kind of equipment. It looks like they're frontline dungeon clearers. Kai immediately asked, So what should we do now? Hyunbok pulled the mask he had in his pocket and put it on, saying, Let's go meet them first. In case of any trouble, everyone get ready for a fight. From now on, we'll communicate via telepathy. The group moved toward the dungeon explorers. When they saw Hyunbok and the other three, they looked a bit bewildered. Hyunbok and Chris's group also stood perfectly still looking at them. No one said a word. One of the men stepped forward to greet them first. I'm Kim Jong-hyuk, the guild leader. So how about teaming up with us? Even just for a short while is fine, Hyunbok immediately nodded in agreement. Then I'll count on you. Seeing that Hyunbok had accepted the cooperation, he laughed even louder. Ha 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 ha! That's the spirit! Come on, let me introduce you! To everyone. Hyunbok replied coldly, Sure, thanks. Kessler didn't have much sympathy for that group. He looked at the man with a judgmental gaze. That guy. Hyunbok was pulled over to their group. They were talking to each other very happily. The more Kessler looked at that guy, the more annoyed he felt. Seriously, what a repulsive guy. The man reached out, acting friendly, wanting to shake hands. Nice to meet you. Hyunbok politely extended his hand and introduced himself. I'm one hero. The other guy spoke up again. It's a pleasure to meet you, one hero. If you don't mind me asking, do you have a guild? Hyunbok calmly replied. No, I'm on my own. As soon as he finished, the man couldn't help but look suspiciously at the three people behind him and asked, By yourself. Then who are those people behind you? Hyunbok pointed toward them and explained, They are the zombies I subdued in the basement. A level, and I've been taming them ever since. The man looked surprised. That's truly shocking. You can come this far with just thralls. His eyes suddenly narrowed. Afterward, he made an offer. If you're really alone, do you want to join our forces? Looking at the subordinates. Perhaps he thought Hyunbok was a mage. Mages are very strong, but they have a fatal flaw. They need a lot of time to cast spells. Perhaps that's why you need thralls to protect you. But this is an E-rank dungeon. Who knows what we'll face later? Hyunbok looked at him. He suddenly realized something was off and pondered, this guy. On the screen of Hyunbok's phone information about the mission appeared. Reading it, he suddenly frowned and said seriously, 16 people have died in just one day. Grit walked over to him. It felt like this was completely normal. Their abilities are only so much. What's so strange about that? Hearing this, Hyunbok remembered and felt that what it said was right. To be honest, the skills of those dungeon explorers are really disappointing. They've already cleared 2 dungeons, so I thought they would be better than this. But they struggled so much just fighting at that level. I don't think we need to go with them anymore. Grit spoke up again. Anyone who sees this notification would be very panicked. If they are people who lost teammates, they would be even more terrified. It seems they have a savior now. They're going to go crazy over this. Holding someone's business card in its hand, Grit said with a cryptic tone, This is the business card of the captain they met in the dungeon yesterday. His name is Jong Hyuk. Staring at the phone that had just been snatched from his hand, Grit asked, What do you want to do? According to information on the forum, Kim Jong-hyuk is quite active. Seeing his hands empty, Hyunbok narrowed his eyes at it. He didn't answer immediately, but asked, Why did you snatch my phone? Kessler said seriously, Either way, we can't be careless. If he gathers the remaining people into one group, the number of people following him will increase. Chris thoughtfully said, That Kim Jong-hyuk guy bothers me. Kai was also pensive. It spoke up. I didn't like him from the moment I saw him. As soon as it finished, Kessler pointed excitedly and said, Right. Well, said Kai, I don't like that guy. His tone was full of hatred. Hearing them talk, Hyunbok couldn't help but wonder, Why do you two dislike him? Kessler crossed his arms. Just mentioning him is enough to make me uncomfortable. His face, his gaze, his gestures, his attitude, I hate everything about him. Hyunbok, hearing this, acted helplessly. That's just your feeling, though. Kai spoke up. What worries me about him are the members of his guild. I bet you didn't notice because you only paid attention to Kim Jong-hyuk. But when they were in the dungeon, they were all silent when they looked at Kim Jong-hyuk or talked about him. Even though their mouths were smiling, their eyes were completely different. I'm sure of it, it's hatred. That's what I think, anyway. What you said has no basis, Chris spoke up. In short, you just have a bad feeling. Intuition cannot be used as evidence. Grit, hearing this, suddenly got angry. But intuition cannot be ignored because people can easily harbor hatred over small things. For example, a snack you saved for a long time being snatched by someone else. Grit said, It's true that intuition cannot be ignored, but it also cannot be used as evidence. Hearing them talk, Kessler suddenly asked, Hey, Grit, do you mean you think that guy is trustworthy? It replied, No, in my opinion, we should eliminate him before he gets stronger as soon as possible, but we can only do that when we have concrete evidence. Hearing the answer, Kessler asked, So you already have a logical reason to eliminate him? It replied firmly, Exactly. Hyunbok, hearing this, immediately asked, So what is that concrete reason? That was when Chris, You already had a valid reason to eliminate him, right? It replies firmly, Exactly. Hyunbok, hearing that, immediately asks, Then what exactly was that reason? And so Chris presented the reason why we should eliminate Kim Jong-hyuk. After hearing her explanation, I couldn't help but agree. I spoke up. We must eliminate Kim Jong-hyuk before it's too late. He has prepared a play for us. On the dungeon page, this post was uploaded to all survivors in E-Rank Dungeon 1313. Hello, I am Kim Jong-hyuk. I'm sure everyone has checked the mission window today. Today there were 16 victims in total. To the survivors of the E-level dungeon 1313. Hello, I am Kim Jong-hyuk. Surely everyone has checked the mission window today. Today there are a total of 16 victims. Those who fought yesterday must already know this. The difficulty of the A-rank dungeon is significantly higher than the F-rank. To minimize the risk of death, we should form an alliance. I found a spacious place for us to meet up. I really hope everyone comes to discuss the situation in detail and decide together, because this is a matter of life and death. I hope everyone can make it. The meeting will be held in 3 days. The location will be attached below. Anyone having trouble attending, please contact me and I will come to pick you up. After reading, he said, 3 days left, then stood up from his chair. Grit spoke up first. We must prepare the necessary items to take him down. We can't let him build an even stronger faction. His eyes locked onto yours, making Hyunbok space out, thinking, as expected of Chris, I can feel her indomitable spirit and hatred for mistakes. Kessler suddenly blurted out, God, as expected of a mage, huh? Kai also said, people often say you shouldn't offend a mage. 3 days later in the dungeon, many people had arrived at Jong-hyuk's meeting. Seeing that almost everyone had arrived, he spoke up. Everyone listen to me clearly. Can you hear me? Since everyone is gathered, let's begin. First of all, I want to express my gratitude to everyone for taking the time to read the post and come here. Everyone is busy. No one came here just to play, so I will get straight to the point. Everyone must have realized that the difficulty of an A-rank dungeon is much higher than an F-rank. In a short time, 16 people have already died. I was well prepared, but the monsters' levels were much higher than what I had read about. But luckily, my group has many people. We coordinate very well together, so no one was lost. A dungeon is a very dangerous place. A moment of carelessness and you lose your life, but that doesn't mean we can't overcome it. Online, there have been many guides on how to clear dungeons. We are just like them, so we can do it too, right? Of course, everyone has different skills. If we join forces, we can do it, because everyone's abilities are different. I have made some calculations, but I will talk to you all about that later. Humans cannot live on ideals alone. It must be accompanied by reality. The biggest problem is money. Our main income comes from the money we collect when killing monsters. If we have to split the loot among so many people, everyone's share will decrease. If a conflict arises, what should we do? Because everyone is strong, the problem will be extremely serious, so we really need a leadership system to regulate such things. The goal is to solve more practical problems. Furthermore, I stand here to announce the founding of a guild. I have scouted dungeon websites and know that a system update for guilds is coming. After establishing a guild, the profit gained from killing monsters will increase by 30%, along with other benefits. Standing in the crowd, Hyunbok looked at him and thought to himself, he's starting to show his true colors. He acted very righteous and continued, so I propose that we form a guild and I will be the guild master. Jong-hyuk got to the heart of his speech. So I want to establish a guild and I will be the guild master. The crowd quickly became stirred by this proposal of his. Jong-hyuk laughed loudly and continued, of course there is a reason why I want to become the guild master. After honing my skills, I have gained a superpower. The crowd was even more stirred by the information he brought, making it hard for anyone to believe. Some people even looked down on it and said, gained a superpower after honing skills, never heard of that before. Can you really do that? What kind of superpower is it? Jong-hyuk began to explain his own ability. First, I have a B-rank skill called subordinate control. This skill allows me to give orders to those under my command or those with a lower level. However, even though my skill can control others, everyone still has their own autonomy. I cannot force them. He didn't stop, but continued to elaborate on it. I can only make the body immobile for a short time. Furthermore, I cannot control those stronger than me, so to develop this skill, I have worked hard every day. Jong-hyuk used both hands to emphasize his words. Thanks to those efforts, I have reached the threshold of a superpower. That superpower is the ability to upgrade the skills of those I lead. In an instant, his words directed the crowd's gaze toward the three adventurers standing below. The words just spoken made them even more surprised. And then, they found it even harder to believe and looked up at Tran Hugh Uk. What skill upgrade is it real? He was excited, then laughed and continued to show it off. I call this superpower Blessing in Disguise. Just as the name implies, it can increase the skill level of those under my control by 1 rank. If everyone agrees to make a contract with me and stand under my banner, I can upgrade skills for everyone. To add persuasiveness to his words, Jong Hyuk pointed at a random man and proposed, "Seeing is believing. Can you come here for a moment?" He instructed the guy while grabbing his hand. "You just need to say, 'I will make a contract with you,' and that's it." Hearing that, he immediately followed, "I will make a contract with you." However, there was no special phenomenon after that person's words. Yet Jong Hyuk patted his shoulder firmly, laughed, and continued to present, "There now, this person is my subordinate." He quickly got to the point, executing his ability. Suddenly, the guy's rogue skill was upgraded from Rogue C to Rogue B. "Now I will show you my superpower has truly become stronger." He immediately opened his status board and exclaimed in amazement, "It's real, my skill has been upgraded. Oh, this superpower is amazing." The crowd was once again stirred. They were almost convinced by what had just happened. Just a simple contract that could upgrade a skill, how wonderful. With a superpower like this, clearing dungeons will no longer be a problem. Jong Hyuk, with the living example as a persuasive argument, continued his speech, aiming to win over the crowd. "With this superpower, the higher my position, the stronger I will become. For this reason, and I wish to become the guild leader," he said with a friendly smile. His gaze revealed that everything he did was merely to increase everyone's survival rate, even if just by a little. "Please grant this opportunity to as many people as possible," Jong Hyuk said, placing a hand over his heart in a gesture of promise to his subordinates. "My control ability will only grow stronger," he added. "So to prevent any potential risks, I am voluntarily taking a mana oath right here, right now. A mana oath is an unbreakable vow. If you act against the oath, the violator will not only lose all their mana, but will also be consumed by that very mana, dying a slow, agonizing death in despair." A blue light flared up, moving at the position where Jong Hyuk placed his hand. It radiated even more powerfully as his clear, resonant voice rang out, "As a mana user, I swear that I will never issue unreasonable commands." The witnesses were excited by what Jong Hyuk had just done. "Look, he took a mana oath. Mr. Jong Hyuk is truly worthy of being the guild leader. Let's join hands and clear this dungeon together." He heard this and flashed a friendly smile at those before him. "Thank you all for your understanding." But in an instant, Jong Hyuk revealed his true nature, his face twisting into a cunning, sinister smile. "That's done." A round of applause rang out, cutting through the noise from both him and the crowd. It was Hyunbak with his skeletons. He clapped while speaking, drawing everyone's attention. "Impressive. I knew you'd ask to form a guild." Not stopping there, Hyunbak added, "But I never expected you to have the superpower to upgrade skills for everyone." Jong Hyuk maintained his fake smile as he heard those words. "Thank you, Hyunbak. I never thought a high-level mage like you would compliment me." Hyunbak continued, and upon hearing that, he posed a question that drew the attention of both the crowd and Jong Hyuk. "I have a question. Can you answer it?" Jong Hyuk replied immediately. "Of course, go ahead." Hyunbak looked at him with a sharp gaze, then quickly repeated the description of the power. "A skill that can upgrade. If a person is affected by the Blessing in Disguise skill, your ability to control them also becomes stronger, right?" Jong Hyuk admitted, "That's right. However, if they are stronger than me, have a higher level than me, or have a stronger mental fortitude, they can resist it." Hearing that, Hyunbak rubbed his chin, looking thoughtful as he listened to the man's words. "You say they can resist it, huh?" He dropped his playful demeanor and became serious as he asserted, "I see. So that's why you killed all 16 of those people." The crowd's expressions shifted again at Hyunbak's words. Jong Hyuk couldn't help but break into a cold sweat, yet he kept that fake smile, acting innocent as he asked back, "What are you talking about? I killed those 16 people, unable to stand it." Hyunbak cut him off. "Don't pretend anymore. I mean the people you tried to control but died because they fought back against your orders. Or are there even more than that? Jong-hyuk gritted his teeth, thinking to himself, this bastard. Jong-hyuk quickly brought an arm to his left chest, loudly denying the accusation. What are you saying, Hyunbok? In my life, I have never killed anyone. If you don't believe me, I can take a mana oath right now. A blue light from the mana oath appeared again. This time it shone even brighter than before. I have never killed other explorers, I swear on my mana oath that what I am saying is the truth. This really worked. The others were quickly swayed, looking at Hyunbok with hostility. He's even swearing a mana oath, so how could he be lying? That mage must be spouting nonsense. Kessler, who had been annoyed for a while, spoke up immediately. This is so irritating, just go up there and tear his throat out already. Hearing this, Kai advised, be patient, Kessler. Getting hot-headed will only ruin things. Hyunbok stepped forward amid the murmurs. He stated, let me correct myself. You didn't kill them. Then Hyunbok loudly accused him, but you ordered those 16 people to kill each other. The words he uttered right after made Jong-hyuk even more uncomfortable. I misspoke again. According to you, it was just a request, right? Back when Jong-hyuk Busol was in the previous dungeon, his group had 28 explorers, and he stood out for nothing. Therefore, he had tried to use his own control ability to surpass others at any cost. Finally, he had obtained the superpower blessing in disguise. There was only one constant. He had always been a villain, using the mana oath to make everyone drop their guard and gather the explorers under his control. When the dungeon raid was nearing its end, he would reveal his true nature. He would issue orders, no requests. Those who resisted his commands were killed by others. Those who couldn't resist his requests would kill those who opposed him. So Jong-hyuk had never killed anyone. In reality, he only incited them. The truth exposed, he lost his composure and shouted, stop spouting nonsense! Do you have proof? Do you have any evidence that I did those things? You dare to accuse me without any proof. Jong-hyuk turned the suspicion onto Hyunbok because of his appearance. You never show your face, isn't it you who has something to hide? Don't think that just because I respected you, you can say whatever you want. However, he calmly replied with a serious expression, proof you say if you want it, you've got it. Although you won't be able to believe it. Jong-hyuk burst into laughter. That's ridiculous. What kind of act are you trying to pull here? But deep down, he thought to himself, he can't have proof. The corpses of those explorers disappeared along with the dungeon. Jong-hyuk acted like a madman to take control of everyone. Furthermore, he had influenced the survivors quite a bit. Yoon-hana, the girl standing in the middle, suddenly spoke up. Stop making things up. She and the man next to her under his influence, shouted desperately, defending Jong-hyuk. Jong-hyuk is very trustworthy. Thanks to him, we were able to survive. If you don't know anything, don't just talk. Hyunbok raised his staff while whispering, how pathetic. Just wait a moment, I will set everyone free. A magic circle was laid out beneath his feet. From the ground rose the souls of those explorers. They quickly stood up from the earth and cast hateful glares toward him before charging forward. After everything was settled, Hyunbok began to introduce himself. My name is Hyunbok. I am a mage who learned magic. From the Necromancy Institute. The crowd heard this and briefly became suspicious, immediately asking, where is the Necromancy Institute? Are you a necromancer, Hyunbok? Continued to explain about himself while those souls were still standing around him. As I said, I am a necromancer. The magic I learned from the Necromancy Institute has many uses. Magic has many types. Some can summon undead and golems. Some can curse or poison. Amidst the gazes watching him, Hyunbok continued, among those I am most proficient in. Dealing with the undead, Jong-hyuk felt increasingly uneasy as he heard this. He pressed his lips into a thin line as Hyunbok continued. That's why I have the ability to hear and see things that normal people can't. Honestly, whatever you Jong-hyuk want to do, it doesn't affect me, and it's none of my business. Then he cast his gaze down toward the spirits. But ever since we met, they've been pestering me constantly, so I've had to step in. He briefly lost his cool and shouted, shut your mouth! There's no such thing as ghosts. This is just magic. It's just child's play. Suddenly before he could let Jong-hyuk say another word, a voice rang out a call that forced him to stop. Just as he spat out, stopped a finger from one of the spirits. dropped and pointed directly at someone Jong Hyuk was controlling and commanded, "Release this child at once." The crowd gasped in shock as they saw the spirit of a girl pointing her finger at Eun-hana. "Set my younger sister free." Several people saw this and turned their eyes toward Eun-hana. Now she was trembling and tears were starting to pool in the corners of her eyes. Yet he still refused to yield and shouted back, "Everyone don't believe him, this is just a trick of his. He's just jealous that I'm the guild master." The people being controlled all trembled, wanting to resist. But under the manipulation, they forced smiles and spoke up to defend Jong Hyuk. Their words became stuttering. "That's right, brother, Jong Hyuk hasn't done anything wrong." She, with eyes streaming tears of blood, spoke up, "Please believe in him." Those bloody tears of Eun-hana proved that the truth was exposed, leaving the crowd gaping in shock. Some people couldn't even control themselves and ground their teeth in anger. Is this really something a human could do? They turned their hateful gazes toward him and questioned, "Speak the truth. You want to manipulate us like this, don't you? Release them now." Jong Hyuk was now helpless, unable to find excuses anymore. Sweat drenched his body, and he gritted his teeth, unable to utter a word. They constantly attacked him. "Don't steal our comrades' freedom. You bastard, you're not worthy of being the guild master." Jong Hyuk, hearing this, felt uncomfortable and collapsed into a state of breakdown, followed by a burst of trembling rage. Damn it, everything was almost finished." His gaze shifted to Hyun-bok, and he cursed, "It's all that dog's fault." Jong Hyuk could no longer control his composure. He lunged forward from a distance and roared, "You!" Without hesitation, he swung his sword at him, determined to take Hyun-bok's life. "I'll kill you!" However, he remained completely unshaken. As Jong Hyuk's blade neared him, Kessler suddenly appeared and blocked the blow for Hyun-bok, causing sparks to fly from the collision of metal. He even sent him flying back several meters, forcing the guy to brace his hands on the ground to stop his momentum. Jong Hyuk gritted his teeth and cursed, "You bastard!" He looked at both Kessler and him and added, "You're just a puppet too. Why are you interfering in my business?" But he didn't give Jong Hyuk any more time. He rushed forward again with incredible speed to strike him. Seeing this, he hurriedly stepped back while simultaneously stretching his hand toward the controlled people and giving the order, "Block him." Kessler swung his sword, giving him no chance, slashing forward, but luckily Jong Hyuk dodged it. He let out an annoyed, dissatisfied cry. His small sword was suddenly forced away, clashing with the great sword of the man who wanted to kill him. Flashes of light appeared rapidly as the two swords clashed. Jong Hyuk loudly commanded a second time, "You puppets, attack." The controlled people started, moving under that immense pressure. They helplessly moved into position to act as cannon fodder for him. All three rushed forward toward Kessler to attack. Seeing the situation, their telepathy was immediately used. He spoke to the others. "There's no other choice we have to break their limbs." Kai from behind understood what Kessler meant and rushed forward to support. "No, you can't!" "Kessler, they haven't done anything wrong. Keep the damage to them to a minimum." Then each took a target and attacked. When he clashed with Eun-hana, feeling the power radiating from her and Kai's, mind a thought flashed. Very good defense. She wasn't pushed back. Is it because her ability has been upgraded? On the other hand, seeing this, Jong Hyuk laughed arrogantly and mocked Hyun-bok. "And you use that pile of bones to face my subordinates? Don't even dream of it!" The brag had barely left his mouth when Eun-hana was knocked flying backward right in front of him, making Jong Hyuk pause for a moment. The attacker was no other than Creed. It used the formation it had constructed to blast her away. His arrogance was soon replaced by an annoyed expression when he saw Eun-hana land hard on the ground. Jong Hyuk immediately cast a formation in his palm, but his mouth kept running incessantly. "Don't be arrogant. I'll show you what a blessing in disguise really is. She on this." Side suddenly widened her eyes as he increased the control and boosted the skill for Eun-hana. "She on this side," because it was too much, clutched her head in pain. A red aura radiated around Eun-hana, but it wasn't just her. The two remaining men also had the same symptoms. Their stats rapidly increased as he explained proudly, "This is the frenzy mode, using one's life to trade for a sudden boost in stats." Suddenly, those frenzied people rushed to attack him. Behind, having received the mission, he kept on talking. "Now try facing them. You have no room to resist anymore." One sword clashed with Kessler's greatsword, one sword clashed with Kai's greatsword. Each person faced one of the men Jong Hyuk was controlling. Creed chose not to fight, but only stayed back to support them with its formation. Ice arrows. But before that attack could hit the guy, Yoon Hana blocked in front of him. Hyunbok observed the situation from behind, and then with his eyes he quickly realized their stats had increased sharply. But suddenly, before the thought could finish, he aimed at Hyunbok and rushed forward, cursing, "My subordinates are much stronger than your dolls." Jong Hyuk quickly arrived right in front of him and swung his sword, "Go to hell." Replacing that remark was the calm expression of Hyunbok. He didn't change his expression, thinking to himself, "You're celebrating too early." From midair, a black hole suddenly appeared, striking him directly. Jong Hyuk grimaced, cursing, "Damn it, you trash! What are you doing?" But that expression didn't last long. He froze when he looked back behind him. Bone Dragon was pressing down on Jong Hyuk with a gaze filled with killing intent, making him tremble. His mouth stuttered, Bone Dragon!" Hyunbok didn't wait any longer and gave the order. The skeleton warriors quickly emerged from the ground. The warriors under his command reached up and grabbed her legs. A hand also slowly reached up and struck the back of Yoon Hana's neck. Kessler, Kai, and Creed successfully knocked out the three, controlled people without a single injury. Jong Hyuk changed his expression immediately. His face was clearly pale, cold as a sheet. Hyunbok slowly approached him and spoke, "That was almost successful, wasn't it?" He twirled the magic staff in his hand and continued, "If I hadn't been lingering around here, even if you had succeeded, I wouldn't have known a thing. And then, you're only going to get stronger," he shouted threateningly the moment he saw Hyunbok raising his magic staff ready to strike before abruptly switching to pleading. "Wait, what are you doing? I get it, okay? I won't do it again. I was wrong." Jong Hyuk stammered, straining every muscle and neuron to force out those desperate begging words. "Just spare my life, please let me go. I won't ever do it again." "You don't strike me as the type of person who enjoys cold-blooded killing, right?" Hearing this, Hyunbok didn't lower his staff. He asked, "Do you spare the lives of those who beg you for mercy, Jong Hyuk?" Jong Hyuk, though terrified, quickly lied. Yes, I swear on my life it's the truth." Hearing that, Hyunbok fell silent for a moment before looking at him with sharp, cold eyes. Without further hesitation, he delivered a lethal blow. Blood splattered everywhere. Lying is a bad habit. Blood from Jong Hyuk's head sprayed onto part of Hyunbok's mask. Having just snapped out of his own memories, Hyunbok rushed into the bathroom and immediately started retching. He couldn't help but feel disgusted by himself. The sounds of vomiting and heavy, ragged breathing filled the room. Hyunbok squeezed his eyes shut, blaming himself. "I've killed someone." And that memory, it was still right there. The sensation of striking a human head and the way the blood erupted like a volcanic eruption, he couldn't erase it. Suddenly a voice echoed, "You endured it well, Master." The voice quickly filled the space. "Master, you killed an evildoer. If you hadn't killed him, countless more innocent people would have died at his hands. Furthermore, Master, you did the right thing." As soon as the words ended, Hyunbok fell into a state of confusion. Was it really the right thing? Was there a way to contain him without killing him? Maybe I didn't have to kill him like that. Hyunbok fell into deep thought, more intense than ever. The voice quickly resonated in his mind again. "You were the one who led those skeletons too. Why are you trying to stop me now?" Hyunbok recalled and continued his train of thought. If that guy was treated that way, then I have no way to refute it. He remembered his friends Kessler, Kai, and Creed. Each memory of them surfaced, leaving Hyunbok helplessly shutting his eyes. "Didn't you guys disagree with your masters?" Actions. The ones outside quickly seized the moment to manipulate his emotions. "Can you just let that go? Master, all of this was our choice since we swore the mana oath. If we hadn't gotten rid of Jong Hyuk, who knows what kind of massive disaster he would have caused?" The voices continued to echo in Hyunbok's ears. He gritted his teeth in agony. And there would have been even more victims that even we couldn't have predicted. Master, you must overcome this feeling of guilt. Finally, Hyunbok couldn't take it anymore. He walked over and opened the door. "Stop it." And then the door was opened. The three of them stood there facing him. "Don't say another word to me today. I want to be alone." Hearing that, the three of them stood aside and cleared the way for Hyunbok. He walked out. Seeing the situation had become so heavy, the three of them didn't say a word, only watching his retreating figure in silence. After he left, Hyunbok threw himself onto his body pillow. He didn't know what to do or how to feel. He just lay on the bed, helpless and silent. But even as he closed his eyes to find peace, Hyunbok's thoughts couldn't stop racing. I know it too. If I had let Jong-hyuk live, he might have killed me just to survive. So that was something that had to be done. His eyes slowly cracked open. But a murderer is still a murderer. No, nothing can argue against that. I will never forget this. Hyunbok's eyes were no longer filled with the courage to face it. So from now on, I have to be determined. To survive, even if I have to commit a crime, I must not forget it. A blue aura flickered around him. It's all a debt to pay. That's what makes me determined to survive at any cost, to atone for my sins. After a while, Hyunbok drifted off to sleep. The pitch-black sky had already given way to the blinding morning light which shone right into his eyes, causing Hyunbok to jolt awake. But early as it was, he was startled by the trio standing by his bed popping a celebratory cracker. "Congratulations, master." It left Hyunbok, completely confused. "Huh?" he asked slowly, turning his head back. "What's going on?" They chimed in happily one after another. "Congratulations. You reached the 4th circle. I always believed in you, master." "Master, you're the absolute best." But Hyunbok didn't pay attention to those comments and asked straight to the point of his confusion. "4th circle upgrade, what are you guys talking about?" It immediately explained, "All of us could feel it clearly." Then Chris touched him, causing a blue aura to radiate, and continued, "Master's commitment yesterday shook the mana. You have entered the 4th magic circle." Hearing this, his face showed pure surprise. "Me? Are you serious?" To confirm the words, Hyunbok grabbed his phone to check right away. Before his eyes was his info board. Hyunbok, race human. Strength 26 plus 5. Agility 25 out of 57. Stamina 25 plus 5. Mana 85 out of 110. Dexterity 45 out of 78. Remaining points 40. Hyunbok blurted out, "Seriously, for real?" Suddenly, he felt a huge sense of relief. He decided to accept the guilt as a debt and strive to grow his spirit. But my mood isn't getting any better, is it? However, contrary to Hyunbok, he was very excited and spoke up. "But growing like that is clearly something to celebrate," he added. "Getting stronger is a good thing." Suddenly, a hand reached out and grabbed his. "Master." Grit knelt before Hyunbok and said, "Almost no one has ever become a mage possessing a 4th magic circle in such a short time, master." Then she added, "This is truly a matter of pride." Hearing that, a tired smile finally appeared on his weary face. "Thank you so much." He propped himself up, regaining some spirit. "Reached the 4th circle. Now all the things I need to do are probably piling up like a mountain." Chris, standing nearby, immediately comforted him. "Don't worry. So many things happened yesterday, so you should just get some rest for now." Suddenly, Hyunbok realized, why didn't she answer like Chris? Hearing it, she had to explain the situation. "Right now, the dungeon situation is a bit complicated." Chris gradually recounted, "According to the post on the bulletin board, after we returned, the remaining dungeon adventurers have established a guild." She lowered her head and continued, "But no one has the ability to lead. It seems like distrust is growing among the adventurers because of the Jong-hyuk incident. And right now, the free bulletin board is flooded with comments about you, master." Hearing that, he gave a wry smile, scratched his head, and said, "Yeah, that makes sense, causing such a scene. But on the other hand, on the bulletin board, and right now the free bulletin board is flooded with comments about you." Hearing that, you awkwardly scratch your head and say, "That's true, making such a scene and all." On the other hand, on the bulletin board, the news broke yesterday. A guy named Hyunbok, claiming to be a necromancer, summoned a bone dragon. He appeared out of nowhere like a savior, not hesitating to slaughter the guy right there. What's even more disgusting is that he used some kind of staff to smash his head in. Whoa, seeing that, I thought he was some kind of psychopath. I was just looking at the news board when someone else chimed in. "No one's like this Hyunbok guy, huh?" Mark, standing behind Leon, glanced at the screen and asked, "So who's going to stop him?" "You're reading the comments too, sir." The old man replied, "Yeah, I'm checking it out." Hearing that Mark shared his thoughts, A necromancer controlling a bone dragon who would believe that it's probably just clickbait, right? Like the comments are obviously ridiculous. It's impossible. Can a necromancer really move a monster like that? He paused, eyes darting, then continued. At the very least, you'd have to be in the 6th circle to summon something like that. A bone dragon is way too strong for our guild to handle. And yet that monster was summoned by just an E-rank dungeon necromancer. Hearing this, Leon Holt turned and immediately replied, no. Actually, there's a high chance it's real. This left Mark confused, and he quickly stammered, wait, didn't you just say it was impossible a second ago? The old man explained so Mark could understand. There are many posts mentioning similar things on the dungeon forums. Since so many people are posting about it, I think it actually exists. Leon Holt remembered something else. Furthermore, he's at the end of the 5th circle, almost reaching the 6th. We can't rule out the possibility of a necromancer doing this. After listening to his analysis, Mark was stunned, his mouth agape, not knowing what to say. Seeing that Leon Holt laughed and asked, why so tense? Unexpected things happen all the time, we just keep living our lives. That's just how it is. Even so, Mark had his own perspective. Even so, sir, don't forget about the dungeon invasion. I'll make sure to finalize all the tasks the president requested. As soon as he finished, the old man laughed heartily and exclaimed, just as I thought. Hearing you say that makes me like you even more. I'm counting on you, Mark. Mark quickly got into a serious mindset. He replied, understood, I will handle the president's request first. Leon Holt also said sternly, good, I'm counting on you. On the other side, they were clashing with wooden swords non-stop. Kessler was swinging his sword relentlessly at Hyunbok. Hyunbok didn't fight back, only dodging, which made Kessler rush forward. Master, if you only dodge, you'll never be able to control the enemy. Suddenly, Hyunbok's eyes glowed as if realizing something, and he silently waited for the right moment. Watching Kessler looming in front of him, he thought to himself, when you enter the 4th circle, your memory, thinking speed, and calculation skills really do get sharper than before. Even while deep in thought, Hyunbok did not lose focus on the fight and quickly blocked Kessler's blow. Most basic moves like this are predictable. He quickly grasped the situation and countered, knocking the sword out of Kessler's hand. It felt like he had become a different person. Facing the stunned, open-mouthed Kessler, the sword hit the ground with a thud. Kessler exclaimed, that's surprising. You upgraded your skills that much in just a day or two. Hyunbok wiped the sweat from his face and replied, Grit said this is because of the grace of mana. His brain couldn't help but be surprised, asking, the brain, not muscles. Suddenly, while they were talking, Kai interrupted, it's to limit controlling the opponent with pure strength. Hearing that, Kessler was annoyed and shouted back, hey, are you implying I don't have a brain? The guy didn't even turn around, replying, you don't have one. We're just bones after all. As soon as Kai finished, Kessler flew into a rage. What, come here and let's see who's better, making Hyunbok quickly step in. Kessler, Kai didn't mean it that way. Don't get so angry. Seeing the guy slowly stand up, Hyunbok immediately warned Kai, you too, but the guy wasn't standing up to fight. He said, Master, it seems like 13 more explorers have died. Suddenly, the two of them went silent and turned their heads to listen. Kai quickly blurted out, those dungeon explorers formed a guild. Even though the guild they formed is named Norma, I have such an uneasy feeling about it. Above all, they are still trying to find and recruit the master. Suddenly, a shout rang out. Still doing that? He laughed awkwardly and interrupted. I have no intention of joining a group with them. Then that same voice spoke up again. That's right, Master. You've entered the 4th circle. There's no reason to mix with them. Master, you summon more monsters than those guilds do. Hearing that, Hyunbok smiled brightly. Even so, whenever I think about in the difficulty of the dungeon, I want to invade it even more. Suddenly, Chris appeared out of nowhere with a creepy expression saying, no. That startled him. Then Chris continued, how many times have I told you now is the time for you to develop yourself, so give up the thought of going to the dungeon. Right now. Hearing that, he scratched his face timidly and replied, I know. I didn't even have that thought from the start. But is there something else? We're done with the training, right? As soon as Hyunbok finished speaking, the tension broke, and they started clapping excitedly. The atmosphere suddenly became cheerful. Finally, the most important plan was completed. Time slipped into the night. Eunhana on this side was no different from Hyunbok. When she first killed Jong-hyuk, she painfully gritted her teeth when she had a nightmare and her mouth kept muttering, "No, that can't be. Please kill those people." Suddenly, old memories flashed through Eunhana's mind. She quickly woke, up mouth agape, and screamed. The space suddenly went silent, leaving only the sound of heavy panting. Eunhana held her head, frustrated. Nightmare again. His face gradually appeared in her mind. Why? Was it like that Jong-hyuk is dead, right? Images of Eunhana being knocked out appeared again, along with a voice. Sorry. She only remembered being unconscious and lying on the ground. A while later, Eunhana slowly woke up. A strange sound echoed in her ear. I killed Jong-hyuk, but don't worry. His hell starts from now on. As soon as that voice ended, Eunhana terrifiedly snapped awake from her sleep. The scene of him being dragged away by the boy screaming in pain reappeared. Jong-hyuk begged, "Stop!" But Hyunbok didn't care at all and threw him aside, without a shred of mercy. Now do as everyone says. Just as Jong-hyuk lay on the ground, his nightmare began. The souls quickly rushed toward Jong-hyuk. With the bite causing that dog of a guy to scream in agony, he stopped, and the scene before her eyes left her absolutely wide-eyed and jaw-dropped as she followed the situation. What in the world is happening now? Suddenly, Eunhana felt a sense of freedom that belonged to her, and she quickly looked down to see herself moving according to her own will. In the brief moment she was sitting on the ground, confused, a spirit approached. It was over. Hana's older sister stepped forward with a relieved smile and called out, Eunhana, your body is free now. You've suffered so much lately, haven't you? It's okay now. Seeing her sister approach, tears streamed down her face as she said regretfully, Sister, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, sister. It was all because of me. But before she could finish, her sister stepped in and touched Eunhana's shoulder to comfort her. It's okay, you're not at fault for anything. From now on, can you endure this on your own? Then in the glowing light of their parting, her sister smiled a final goodbye. You have to survive, okay? This left Eunhana panicked, and she blurted out, Sister. In an instant, her sister had dissolved into bubbles and floated away. Our duty. Seeing the situation, Eunhana cried out in fear. Wait, sister, wait for me, sister, turn. Back to reality, she was remembering that past. Tears welled up in her eyes, and the bright smile she once had was gone. Eunhana clenched her fists, determined. She couldn't just lie there and cry. She couldn't just stay home like that. She had to be strong so that things like this wouldn't happen again. At that thought, she quickly imagined herself fighting those ferocious monsters. Even so, Eunhana wasn't afraid. She gripped her shield to attack. Then suddenly she roared at the top of her lungs, Can you stop? As soon as those words finished, blood splattered everywhere. The scene shifted to Hyunbok, who was smirking and asked, Creed, I still don't understand why we have to build a base. It pointed to the project and replied, As you know, Master, there isn't just 1 or 2 dungeons appearing in this world. We can't attack all the dungeons like that. Creed continued explaining, if an attack fails, the monsters remain intact. And the dungeon seekers will have their names stripped away just like us and become undead. It created a scene to illustrate its point vividly. In cases where they are left neglected like the houses where the seekers once lived, those monsters can walk out of the dungeon. His expression suddenly became serious. That's right. At that moment, clearly the voice from that car echoed in Hyunbok's head. Sightseeing is fine too, but you should return before it's too late. There have been many terrible things lately. There are many missing person cases. I heard 50 people worldwide. It's horrific. Really. They were all found dead from blood loss. That thought was followed by him. That incident could also be caused by monsters. Understanding his thoughts, Creed pushed its glasses up and continued. That is why we need a long time to increase the survival rate, a base that everyone can use. Hearing this, Hyunbok turned around excitedly and asked right away, So that's how it is. When does construction start? It held up one finger and replied, First we have to look at another problem. This left him confused, wondering what other problem. Creed pointed to the board on the wall and spoke. Building the base costs a lot of money, and the profits from the enchantment cards are gradually decreasing. Hyun-bak, hearing this, shouted in surprise, "What? Doesn't that mean production has increased twice as much as before?" It waved its hand and said, "Recently, the quality of the enchantment cards has been relatively good. Naturally, the price matches." With that, seeing this, he helplessly clutched his head. "So we have to double production again. No, triple it." As soon as Hyun-bak finished, Creed excitedly imagined a bright vision. "So I'm thinking about selling magical items." He couldn't help but worry and blurted out, Wait a minute, Creed, are you okay if this time the crafting method gets leaked? Wouldn't that be a huge problem?" It confidently replied, "Don't worry, the enchantment cards were just to test my capabilities and to make money. Magical items are different." Creed laughed proudly. "My former job was an enchantment mage. This is the answer." Seeing this, they couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, "So confident mages really are scary." Seeing this, it asked immediately, "If you can do it, follow me and let's try it together." Hyun-bak didn't hesitate and immediately pressed his seal onto the paper. "I agree." In an instant, it revealed its true intentions. "If so, then and Master will be busy for a while." Expecting the enchantment lesson was fine, but he turned pale and hesitated as he spoke. Do I have to participate too?" Creed lunged forward loud. "Of course, crafting items is the best way to build a foundation." Hyun-bak slumped helpless. "Well, I guess I have to." The next day, the magic item crafting lesson started. As always, Creed was watching over me. Whenever I made a mistake, she pointed it out bit by bit. Thanks to Creed, I improved quickly. If I kept making the same mistake, I would be punished mercilessly. She gave me some kind of medicine that was good for the body, but I didn't know what it was called. This medicine was truly so terrible that I couldn't stand it. It was both bitter and spicy, it had a weird taste, and it even smelled fishy. Wouldn't it smell like this if you mixed mustard, stinky tofu, and shrimp paste? Of course I hadn't tried eating that yet. 3 months passed. One day, Hyun-bak walked out with blank white eyes, his body trembling as he blurted out, I can't take it anymore." But it standing behind him held that bizarre medicine approached him and said, "Master, you forgot one thing." Hyun-bak quickly ran away, eyes filled with tears. "Just leave it. I'd rather you kill me." Suddenly, he was blocked by a voice that rang out. "Is that you?" Kai spoke with a serious tone. "Finally, the moment has arrived." The guy's words made the other two turn back, listening with serious expressions. "The boss room of the E-rank dungeon has been discovered." Time quickly moved to 11:33. In a corner, someone was holding a phone saying, "I don't think we'll make it in time." The person next to them quickly chimed in, "If we make it, it'll be a huge help to us." Suddenly, Yoon-hana appeared out of nowhere and said, "Anyway, I wasn't expecting much." They stood tall in front of the main gate. Then she commanded, "We have to attack." Yoon-hana, the guildmaster of Noma, turned around and announced, "Everyone get ready. We're going in." With the authority of a leader, she spoke loudly, "I won't talk long. Don't die." Suddenly, among the cheering crowd, someone discovered something and glanced over. Then he turned completely and called out loudly, "Look over there. Someone is coming." Before their eyes were only glowing, unrecognizable eyes, like a troop of soldiers rushing in. Leading them was Hyun-bak, followed by his teammates Kai, Creed, Kessler, and other skeletons. They were like two schools of thought standing apart on two sides. No one said a word to each other. 392 days left before the dungeon attack failure, a 1,313 times. Hyun-bak began attacking the dungeon. In 108 days waiting in front of the boss room on the first floor, the space was silent. After a moment, Hyun-bak was the first to speak up. "Hey everyone, long time no see." Masked and composed, he said clearly, "It is a pleasure to meet you all once again." A buzz of whispers rippled through the crowd. "Look at the numbers he brought. Did he summon them all by himself?" "No way." Yoon-hana stepped forward, grabbing everyone's attention. Every eye was on him. "We are also pleased to meet you. To think you would come all this way." "We are truly grateful to you," she said, standing tall and unafraid of the army he had brought. "Back then I was in such a desperate spot that I couldn't greet you properly. I am Yoon-hana, leader of the Noma Guild. She bowed respectfully with a bright smile. Thank you for avenging my sister. One day, I will surely repay this debt. But Hyunbok calmly brushed it off. Don't mention it. As for that guy Jong Hyuk, I just happened to know from a prophecy that he would become my future enemy. As soon as the words left his lips, Eun-hana wore an intrigued smile. She looked up and said, Is that so? She slowly stood up and asked, Then can we join forces this time to take down the boss for our own mutual benefit? Hearing this, Hyunbok was momentarily surprised. Not help, but join forces, Eun-hana replied calmly. Yes, join forces. Even as strong as you are, Hyunbok, you have your limits. But before she could finish, he interrupted her. Guildmaster, I'm not exactly the type to struggle when it comes to killing monsters. This statement made her hesitate, unsure of how to respond. Then, Eun-hana quickly thought of another approach. What if I were to pay you for it? Hyunbok immediately asked, Pay me? As if to clarify her intentions, she pulled out a suitcase, full of cash and 5 gemstones. Pointing at them with a bright smile, she said, 100 million in cash and 5 mana crystals. If we successfully take it down, I will pay you a higher reward. Seeing this, Chris immediately linked his thoughts with Hyunbok. Master 100 million in cash and 5 mana crystals isn't bad at all. But he thought, yeah, but 100 million isn't that much money for us. Still, Hyunbok asked to be sure, if we succeed, how will you pay me? Hearing that, she put her hands on her hips and laughed. After we defeat the boss, I will definitely give you the loot to show my sincerity. Eun-hana placed a hand on her chest and continued, And the 5 members of the Noma Guild, including myself, will swear a mana oath and fulfill one request of yours. Hyunbok clearly felt her sincerity. His eyes flickered with some hesitation. After a few seconds, Hyunbok decided to team up. All right, let's join forces. Of course, this agreement holds for now and potentially for the future as well. Seeing this, Eun-hana happily reached out to shake his hand. Thank you. To make sure we take it down, please help us plan. After accepting the proposal, Eun-hana began to explain her strategy. Our Dungeon Explorer Guild also brought shields. I don't know exactly what kind of boss we're dealing with, but it should be simple enough. Still, we must choose our path carefully. But the plan was immediately shattered. A giant wolf appeared in Hyunbok's line of sight, making him realize that it was indeed a wolf boss, and there were over 100 more. Hearing this, she gasped, If it's a wolf? Seeing the clear anxiety on Eun-hana's face, he reassured her, Don't worry, I have a plan. After that, we mapped out a new strategy. Once prepared, the boss room opened. Following the plan, they lined up side by side to make the start of the battle easier. They stood on the right with shields and swords. On Hyunbok's side, they stood with a variety of weapons. Within the crowd, they couldn't keep quiet for long. Someone spoke up. This isn't as easy as I thought. Before them stood the wolf along with various other creatures acting as its soldiers. The wolf quickly puffed out its chest and let out a roar that echoed everywhere. The giant rats understood it as a command and lunged forward to attack. She frantically ordered, Shield soldiers charge, following the orders of Eun-hana and the pre-planned strategy. They instantly formed a defensive wall made of bamboo shields. Under the plan that had been set, they retreated behind the shield wall and threw a large bag